My brother is at my desk with my laptop turned sideways so I cannot see it, which is how I know it is going to be a long evening. Blood type, he says, I tell him, because it is easier than asking why, and anyway my wallet is lying open beside him with the card already out of the sleeve. He types with 2 fingers and a lot of shoulder. Ray does everything with a lot of shoulder. He is 5 years older than me and half a person wider, and he has been putting my name into things since I was 9, and the joke has never been the thing itself. The joke is always me finding out. Height, he says, and then he says, do not say about 6 foot. About 6 foot, I say. He puts down 6'4", which is his own height to the inch, because he has never been able to write my name into a box as anything smaller than himself. Then he leans back so I can see the screen, because the leaning back is the whole performance. Black page, white letters, my name and my address and my blood type, all correct. And at the bottom a line that says, posted by, with his own name sitting under it, where anybody who ever looks at this can read whose evening it was. The site is fake, I tell him. He looks at me like a menu he has already decided about. Obviously the site is fake, he says, and hits it. Nothing happens. That is what I want on the record, and cannot have, because the room does not go cold, the lights do not flicker, and my skin does not do one single thing. He shuts the laptop and asks what there is to eat. There is nothing, so we go down to the corner and he pays, and he tells the joke twice more on the walk back. The second one is bad. He has used the good version. At 2 in the morning, the light in my room goes out and does not come back. In the flat, the laptop wakes by itself on the desk where he left it. Raid comes back into the bedroom with a glass of water and stops in the doorway. The bed is made. The window is shut from the inside. He says his brother's name twice in a normal voice, the way you do before you have understood anything, then turns the screen round and reads it. He keeps hold of the glass a long time. When he sets it down very carefully, on the edge, and it goes over anyway. I land on concrete. 9,000 of us, near enough, on a floor the size of a stadium under lamps that nobody built, and every one of us doing the same 3 things in the same order. Standing up, turning round, saying a name, Aaron Voss, I say, to 9,000 people saying their own. 4 steps off, a man is looking at the far end of it and laughing. A white slab stands over there, taller than a house, with numbers stamped into the metal at eye height. 100,000 marks a seat. He says it again with a word in the middle I am not going to repeat, and behind him, a woman starts crying with no sound in it at all. Then the panel opens in front of my face and hands me 10 points. 6 rows. Strength, speed, endurance, mana, perception, luck at the bottom, where the joke goes. Every row has a plus and a minus, and a small block of text under it that nobody is reading. That is because off to the left, past the crowd, down a tunnel none of us can see the end of, there is a sound like a wet sheet dragged over gravel, and it is getting closer. Strength, says the man beside me, and puts in 10, and his arms change shape while I am looking at them. He rolls his shoulders once, the way a coat settles. 10 in a line that adds is 10, and 3 in a line that doubles is 8. And on day 1, he is right, and I am wrong, and it is not close. So I read the small block of text under the bottom row. I read it twice, and then I stop hearing the tunnel, which given the circumstances is the stupidest thing my body has ever done for me. Doubles, it says. The other 5 rows add and this one doubles, and the panel tells me so in the same flat voice it uses for everything else, and then it goes away and never explains anything to anybody again. The whole floor is elbows and shouting, and 10 steps off, a woman has put 4 into mana and is holding her hands out as though she expects them to do something, and I stand in the middle of it with my finger on the last row of a table, doing the only arithmetic that has ever mattered in my life. 1, 2, 4, 8. Level 12 is 4,096. What I feel is not courage, and it is not cleverness. It is the flat, happy blankness of a man who has found a mistake in a form he was not supposed to be reading. I put in 3. 7 points for 3 levels, and level 4 costs 8, and I have not got 8. The man with the arms reads my panel on his way past and laughs, and it is a good laugh, honest, no cruelty in it anywhere, and he claps me on the shoulder hard enough to move my feet, and goes off down the tunnel with everybody else to find out what the sound is. I never learn his name. He is the second man through and the first one back, and he comes back in pieces. The ration line forms on the near edge of the apron in front of 2 men and a crate. Today is free, because 9,000 people starving on day 1 would be untidy. After today, it is 4 marks and a stamped tin. 40 of us in the queue counting the crate. Then the queue goes quiet from the front backwards, and a very large man comes down the side of it, and he is not hurrying at all. "I am going to take that one," he says, pointing at me from 5 people away. "I am going to take his and eat it in front of him. Then I am going back up to the crate for my own." And he does exactly that, in that order, with nothing going differently. And what stays with me is that he told us first. "Murr," says somebody behind me. He eats 3 shares off this line and says every one of them out loud first, and nobody has worked out yet whether that is stupidity or manners. 4 places back, a boy who cannot be 14 yet has not stopped talking since the line formed, and what he is talking about is 90 marks he owes that man. So I use his own grammar back at him, because he has just taught this line how to talk, and it would be rude of me not to. "I am going into the tunnel," I say loudly, to nobody in particular. "The one on the left, the one a man came back out of in pieces an hour ago, and I am coming out of it with more than was taken off me." Nobody stops me. 2 people say not to, and neither of them puts a hand out, because on day 1, nobody knows anybody well enough to grab them. There is light in that tunnel for about 30 steps, and after that there is not, and I go past the end of it on purpose. Whatever is in here is already dead. Something else killed it and left the floor covered in what it did not want, and I stand in that, with my heart going like a fist on a door. I put my hand on a length of rusted bar, about as long as my arm, the kind of thing a man steps over without looking. It comes up off the concrete, and it is not a length of rusted bar. It is heavier at the end than it has any business being, and lighter in the middle, and when I put it into the wall to see what happens, the wall gives up some of itself. There is a ration sack down there too, with a strap on it, and it was on somebody, and I take it anyway. I come out bleeding from somewhere above my ear, with a sack on one shoulder and a bar in the other hand, and 40 people in a queue turn round and look at me at the same time. Murr says something, and he is a man who says things first, so this is difficult for him, and what comes out of him is a question about where I got that. "Off the floor," I say. "It was lying there." And then the line re-rates me out loud, and a line does that whether you want it or not. Somebody says the bar is not a bar. Somebody else says he watched where I went and how long I was in there and that it was not long enough. A woman I have never spoken to tells the man beside her that I read the table. She says it like an accusation. It is the nicest thing anybody has said about me in 6 years. The boy comes over before I have put the sack down. His name is Pell, and he is 14, and he hands the whole of it across before I ask for any of it. 90 marks, due at the next ration. He paid it for 2 days of nobody taking anything off him, which is a service Murr sells against a risk Murr is, and Murr is holding his tin until he pays. There are eyes on the lamp posts here. Small glass ones, and they turn to follow you, and by the second hour, somebody has worked out that if you stand under the 3rd post on the north side, you can hear what comes back down the other way. That is where the outside lives. A man's voice comes out of it all day, cheerful, fast, in love with himself, naming people who cannot hear him do it. His name is Tas Koro, and he found me about 90 seconds ago. "The lucky idiot," he calls me, and he likes it enough to say it twice. Then he says it a 3rd time with a correction in front of it, which is that he had a feeling about this one from the start, and he did not, and there is nobody up there to tell him so. I am still breathing hard when the woman comes over, and she is the only person on this floor who is not doing something with her hands. "Level 12, she says, 4,096, but you will be looking at level 9 first, which is 512, and you will not reach it for weeks. And the weeks are the difficulty." I have not told one person on this floor what I put my points into. I say so out loud, and she waits, politely, until I have finished being surprised. "Issa Vale," she says. Then she asks what I intend to do on the day somebody takes the uncertainty away, and she does not explain the question because she can see that I do not need it explained. I do not have an answer for her. She looks at me 2 or 3 seconds longer than anybody has ever looked at me, then says thank you and walks off across the apron, and I am left holding a bar, a sack, and a piece of somebody else's arithmetic. Pell is at my elbow before she is out of sight, and he wants to know who that was, and whether I am rich now, and whether the bar can be sold, and what I am going to do about myrrh, in that order, and with no gap anywhere in it. I go back into that tunnel in the evening for the other thing I saw down there and had no name for, and I go in slower this time, and I come out with wet knees. Grains of light lying in the standing water, going out one at a time. One of them goes into my hand and does not come back out, and the panel says a number at me and then says nothing else, because that is what the panel does. They fall where something dies, they lie there, and 9,000 people are up and down every tunnel on this floor right now killing things, and not one of them is bending down, because they are all still fighting and the fighting is not finished. That is a job. It takes me about a minute to work out that it is a job, and 10 more seconds to work out that it is mine, because nobody else here wants the work of walking in behind somebody else's trouble. So that is the rest of my day. Somebody screams somewhere and I count to about 40, and then I go and look at the floor where the screaming was. Nobody is going to make a song out of it. It is a man with a sack walking into rooms other people have finished with, picking things out of the water and going away again before whatever made the noise comes back for seconds. Pell comes with me. I do not invite him. He carries the sack on the 3rd trip and drops it in standing water and apologizes for 11 straight seconds, and then he prices the entire apron for me in case I have mislaid any of it. 4 marks buys a day. 15 buys a roll of bandage. 30 buys a bunk behind a door that locks, and 200 buys the week. 100,000 buys a seat through the white slab, and he says that last one like the name of a country he is never going to visit. By dark I have 4 marks in my pocket, which buys tomorrow, and 6 points on my panel against a level that costs 8. Too short, and the difference is 1 more room with something dead in it, and it is dark now, and I sit down. Pell sits about 4 feet off and does not ask whether he can, and I do not tell him to move, and neither of us has 30 marks, so the door that locks is somebody else's door tonight. He talks himself to sleep. Out past the crates, a man is being loudly certain that all of this is a simulation, and that nothing in it can actually kill you, and he is doing it in the voice of a man who has already had that argument today, and lost it. I lie on concrete under lamps nobody built and count. 4 marks, 6 points, 8 for the next rung, 16 for the one after, 32 for the one after that, 100,000 for the slab, 9,000 of us on this floor. The counting is not comfort. It is what I do instead of thinking about the man who clapped me on the shoulder. Across the apron they are locking the crate up for the night, and Murr is standing beside it with his arms folded, telling somebody what he intends to do tomorrow. And the last thing the woman said to me was a question, and I have been turning it over ever since she walked off, because it was not a threat, and it was not conversation. It was a date in a diary. She was telling me when. Murr takes his second share of the morning standing sideways at the top of the line so that everybody can watch him do it, and he tells us about it first because he tells us about everything first. I am having that, he says, over the head of a man who wanted it. I am having that, and then I am having the one after it, and you can all shut up. Nobody shuts up because nobody was talking. That is a thing he adds on the end, whatever happens. I get up out of the queue and go and stand where he can see me. And this is the first decision I make on my second day, and I make it on an empty stomach. Say it again, I tell him. He looks at me. Somewhere behind me, Pell has stopped breathing in a way I can hear from 4 feet off. Say it again, and say it louder, because the ones at the back cannot hear you. And say the other half of it while you are there. Say what happens if you cannot. And this is the thing about a man who has to announce what he is going to do before he does it. He cannot leave a question standing in front of the queue any more than he can leave a ration sitting in the crate. If I cannot, he says, and then he stops, and I let him stand in the middle of the sentence for as long as he likes. If you cannot, I say, go on. Then he does it. He builds it out loud, at volume, in front of 40 people, because saying it first is the only way his mouth has ever worked. 1 hour. Both of us in the tunnels. Whoever comes back carrying more eats first for a week off this line, and the loser carries for him that week, and the crate stays shut until we are back. He agrees to his own terms about 9 seconds after inventing them, and he looks delighted, and honestly he should. He put 10 into strength on day 1. He can take the front of a loaded crate off the ground with one hand. On any reading of the numbers, this is the easiest week of eating a man ever arranged for himself, and every person watching can do that arithmetic, and every person watching is right. Somebody starts a count, and somebody else finds a lamp, and the ration line turns into an audience without one person deciding that it should, and crowds here manage that in about 4 seconds. Mur goes to the near tunnels off the west side where 400 people have already been through, and everybody knows what is in them and roughly where. It is the correct move. It is what I would tell my own brother to do. I say where I am going out loud, because if I do not say it, the week is not really won, and because I want the cue to hear the shape of it before I am in the dark and cannot argue with anybody. Past the light, I say. Past the last place any of you can see me from, the far tunnel, not the near ones, and I am in it for the hour, and if I am not back at the end of it, you can open the crate without me. A woman on the line asks whether I am simple. It is a fair question, and I do not have a short answer for it. So I go. Pell talks at me all the way to the mouth of the far tunnel. He tells me it is stupid at a rate of about 9 words a second, and then asks whether I want him to come, in a voice that is hoping quite hard for one particular answer. I tell him to hold the lamp at the entrance and not to move it. He holds it so still that when I come back out, his arms are shaking. A place 400 people have already walked over looks decided. Nothing in a cleared tunnel is going to turn out to be anything, because 200 hands have already found out what everything is. So I go where nobody has been, which on the second day means going towards a noise instead of away from it, and then standing behind a fight for 11 minutes with my back on wet concrete, waiting for it to be finished. It is the longest 11 minutes I have ever spent doing nothing. Whatever wins goes off up the tunnel dragging most of its dinner with it, and what it leaves behind is a floor, and a floor is all I have ever needed. Something comes back down while I am still bent over, and it is not the one that won, it is a smaller one that came for the same reason I did, and it takes a piece out of my forearm before I get the bar into the side of its head. It goes off because it decides to and not because I made it. I sit in the water a moment with my hand clamped over my arm, and I do not feel lucky, and there was never anything in any of this that was going to stop that happening. Then I get up, because the hour is running, and I put my hands on 11 separate things in the dark, and 8 of them are exactly what they look like. 2 of them are better. One is a flat knife with a shaped handle that comes up off the concrete, feeling like somebody made it for a particular person. There are marks down there as well, in a burst chest with the lid off, and they are heavier than I expected, so I take my coat off and use it as a bag, because I have no better idea and no time to have one. I come up out of the far tunnel with 51 minutes gone, carrying the coat in both arms with my shoulders round it, and I cannot see anything past the top of the load, so I hear the line before I see it. The sound a queue of 40 people makes when it changes its mind about somebody is not a cheer. It is quieter than that, and it starts at the back. And most of it is people telling each other to look. Mur is there already with a good haul, an honest one, 3 sacks and a pipe and a bundle of something, and he has been standing beside it for 4 minutes, being pleased with it. I put the coat down and it comes open, and nobody prices any of it because nobody on this floor knows what half of it is. The pipe I am carrying is not a pipe, the strap is not a strap. Somebody says the word tools out loud like a swear. A man does the sum out loud over the open coat. How many of these, he says, to get a man through the slab? He starts guessing, and he starts low. A woman behind him tells him to put a knot on it, and then another one, and then she says the number herself, 100,000, in the flat voice of somebody who has already done that arithmetic on her own life. Mur looks at his 3 sacks, then at mine. Then he says out loud, in front of every person who has ever watched him take food off somebody smaller, that I have more. He does not cheat, and he does not argue, and he does not come at me, and I want that said plainly, because a good deal of what comes afterwards would sit easier on me if he had. I take the knife out and give it to Pell. He holds it wrong. He is 14 and he holds it like a pen, and then he cuts clean through the strapping on one of Murr's sacks while he is only trying to point with it, and the strapping goes like wet paper, and he freezes. A man beside him wants to see it. Pell hands it over and the man tries it on the same strapping and it goes exactly the same way for him, and he says so out loud, and Pell takes it back off him a good deal faster than he handed it across. So that is where all this happens. In my hands once, and then whatever the thing has turned out to be, it stays that for whoever holds it next. I do not say any of it to anybody. I stand there with a coat full of marks, and let the line arrive at it in its own time. Before I have the coat tied up again, a man asks whether I would pick him up a strap if I find one down there, and he says it fast, like a man expecting to be laughed at. I tell him I will. Orlu, he says, and then says it again in case I lose it. Then I count 90 marks into Murr's hand, in front of the crate, with 40 people watching, coin by coin, and I take my time over it. He stands there with his palm out and takes every one of them standing up, and that is worse for him than being knocked down would have been, and everybody here knows it, and so does he. Pell is clear, I say. That is the 90. That is the 90, says Murr, and puts the tin in his coat pocket. Nobody says anything about the tin. There is a debt, and the debt is paid, and the tin is a separate object, and none of us standing here are lawyers, and the boy does not ask for it because he is 14 and asking would make it look like it mattered. Level 4 costs 8 and level 5 costs 16, and I buy both of them that afternoon out of what came up off a floor behind somebody else's fight. Level 5. 32 times. Then I look at what a level 6 costs and put it back down again. The first thing 32 does for me is find 3 rolls of bandage and a heap of rag, and the going rate is 15 a roll, and Pell needs 2 of them for his hands because he has been carrying badly all day and will not say so. He talks the entire time I am wrapping them. He prices the apron for me again. He tells me what bandage costs while I am putting the bandage on him, and I believe that is meant as a kindness. A man I do not know comes over while I am doing it, and asks whether it is true, whether it is my own brother whose name is sitting on the bottom of my form, in the line every person outside can read. I tell him yes. He says nothing for a second and then says, "That is rough, mate," in the voice people keep for weather, and goes away, and that is all of it, and it sits on me for the rest of the day. Under the 3rd lamppost on the north side, there is a small crowd now, standing about like people at a bus stop. Somebody in it says my brother's surname out loud, which is also my surname, and gets it right, and then says Aaron after it and gets that right too. The crate opens and I eat first, and it tastes of tin and salt and being looked at, and I am not sure I have ever enjoyed a meal more. That evening a man with gray in his beard sits down near me and tells me without being asked that the easy floors are nearly walked out. 4 or 5 days, he reckons. Then it is all picked over and everybody has to go up. He is right about the apron, and he is badly wrong about everything above it, and I sit there doing arithmetic he cannot see me doing. 4 or 5 days is what a man on this floor can count. What is actually on the table is weeks, and only for one person, and only if that person starts now. I buy Pell a bunk that night. 30 marks behind a door that locks. 200 would have bought him the week, and I do not have 200 yet. He argues about it like somebody who has already decided to say yes, and then he asks whether I am coming in as well, and I say no, and he asks why not, and I tell him that 30 marks is 30 marks. So there is one person sleeping behind my door tonight. It is a rented door, and I am on the concrete outside it with a coat that smells of somebody else's chest. In a kitchen on the other side of everything, a woman is standing at her own front door with her hand still on the latch. The woman on the step is about 50, has come on foot, and is not going to be hurried. "Does Raidvoss live here?" the woman asks. "He does not," says Desvoss, and she does not open the door any further than it is already open. The woman says a name then, her own son's, first and last, and the day he went in, and then she stops talking and waits on the step with her bag held in front of her in both hands, because she has decided in advance that waiting is the thing she is good at. Des shuts the door and stands behind it with her back against the wood for a while. In the other room the screen is on with the sound off, the way it has been since the second night. She goes in and turns it up for exactly as long as it takes the cheerful man on it to say that the brother has now been outside 4 days. Then she turns it down again and sits on the arm of the chair and does not put the light on. Mur comes to me on the apron in the morning with his sleeves already rolled. "The week," he says. That was the terms, and I carry. And he means it. He is standing square, with his arms held out a little from his sides like a man reporting for a shift. And he has come to me in the open where the line can watch him do it. And for him, that is the expensive way. I say no. I say it lightly and in front of everybody, and I say that I have got a boy who carries and that the boy is cheaper. The ration line laughs. It laughs properly out loud for several seconds, and it is at him, and it is on my side. That laugh is the first one in my life that ever went in my direction, and I know exactly what it is doing to him while it is happening, and I stand in the middle of it and let it run all the way out. He does not say anything back. He rolls his sleeves down again, slowly, one and then the other, and there is nothing for him to announce, because there is nothing left he could do that anybody here would want to hear about first. Then he goes. The bunks are behind him on the left, and the crate is behind him on the right, and he does not go towards either of them. He goes to the ramp and up it, and he does not look at one person on the way. The lift is a steel cage on a chain up the face of the apron, and it takes 4 minutes. The ramp takes most of an hour, and the ramp is where things come down. That gap is Captain Saab's entire business, and he has priced it at 50 a head. He works the gate himself with a key on a cord round his neck, and he greets every single person who comes to him by name, and he gets it right, and he does it whether they are paying or not. "Morning, Taro." "Morning, Besky." "That is 50, Besky, same as yesterday, and you were short yesterday, and I let it go, and I am letting it go again, and you will hear about it a third time." He is not cruel. That is what makes him hard to be sensible about. He keeps his word. He runs the cage on time. He has never once overloaded it. And half the apron would rather deal with him than with anybody else down here. He also has 40 people working for him because 40 people would rather move crates all day than climb a ramp with their backs to it. And that is not a threat he makes. It is just the shape of the place. I pay 200. 4 seats. Myself, Pell, a man called Orlu, who asked me for a strap and got one, and the woman who put 4 into mana on the first day and has been holding her hands out at things ever since. Saab takes the coins without counting them, and he does that on purpose, and then says all 4 names back to me in order at the top of the ride, including the 2 he has never met, because I said them once at the bottom. He says mine last and puts nothing in it, and he is the first man up here to say Voss to me without a pause in the middle of it. Orlu says nobody has ever done that to him before. The woman says her name back at him just to check, and he says it again with her at the same time, in the same rhythm, and she laughs for the first time since the landing. The second terrace is warm. That is all it is. Concrete, lamps, a low roof, water down one side, and a line of people standing at it. And after 2 nights on the apron, it is the pleasantest room I have ever been in. The water line runs along the wall, and it has a queue with rules. And the rules belong to a woman with her sleeves pushed up past her elbows and a ladle in her hand that she uses for pointing at least as often as she uses it for water. Nobody takes seconds until everybody has had firsts. Nobody stands in front of somebody who was there first. Anybody who wants to argue about either of those goes to the back, and she has never once raised her voice while sending them there. 401 days, she says when I ask how long she has been doing it. 401, and my feet have been wet for 400 of them, and the first one I do not count because I was still enjoying myself. Her name is Maradoon. She puts a plate in my hands and a plate in Pell's, and when I go to say something, she has already gone past me to the next person, which I will learn is how all her kindness works. I eat sitting down. It is the first time I have eaten sitting down since my brother paid for it at a place on the corner, and I have to stop halfway through and put the plate on my knees for a second. There is a very large man on the end of the bench counting the queue out loud. He gets to 31 and says 31, and 4 people tell him it is 30, and he counts it again and says 31 again, and then explains his method. That is Herrick. He is enormous and slow and completely kind, and he repeats what has just been said as though he is bringing news, and when somebody makes a joke, he explains it back to them so they can enjoy it properly. 26, says a man near the water. About something else entirely. 26 raids gone up past the 9th and none of them come back down. 25, says another man, and he is wrong, and Herrick says 26, and everybody assumes he is wrong too. Mira comes back down the line with the ladle and stops in front of me and asks the question she has clearly been carrying since I sat down. You did that thing at the crate, she says. Everybody up here has heard about the thing at the crate. So why are you sitting on my bench eating my food instead of going and getting 100,000 marks and walking out of the white door like a person with sense? 11 people and a ladle on day 3 with my mouth full, and every person on that bench has stopped chewing to hear what I put after it. I do not leave people standing in a place where the answer is already decided, I tell her. That is all of it. It is not kindness, and it does not make me good. That is not an answer, she says. That is a sentence about yourself. And she goes back to the queue and gives Herrick his water and tells him to sit down and stop counting. And she is entirely right, and I have nothing to put after it. I eat the rest of the plate with the taste gone out of it, and Herrick leans across and tells me that she runs a good queue, and it is true, and it is also the least useful thing any person could have said to me at that moment. The next day, I do not eat at all. Neither does anybody with me, because everything I own went on 4 lift seats and a week of bunks, and the water line only does water after the first plate. Pell asks me the same question for the 3rd time. He asks it fast, as he asks everything when he is frightened, and it is the 3rd time because the first 2 times I gave him an answer he did not like, and he has been hoping I have a better one. He wants to know whether his build is all right. He does not put it like that. He puts it as a question about how far up the terraces a person with 10 in endurance can reasonably expect to get. Endurance is the stat that decides how long you are still alive while it is happening, I tell him. It does not stop anything. It does not get you out of anything. You put 10 points into taking longer. He does not say anything, so I finish it, because I am hungry and because he asked 3 times and because being accurate is the only thing I have ever been good at. On this floor, that is about a month, I say. Above this floor, it is less than that. And there are 4 people sitting near enough to hear it, and one of them puts his bowl down. It is true. It is the most useful sentence anybody has ever said to that boy, and I would say it again on the merits. He gets up and fetches me water without being asked and puts it down beside me and goes and sits somewhere else. And that is the last question Pell ever asks me about anything, and the fast talking goes with it, and nothing gives it back. Level 5 costs nothing more to keep. Level 6 costs 32. Level 7 costs 64. Level 8 costs 128, and level 9 costs 256, and I have 6 points and a plate I did not finish. And the apron is finished with me. Every object down there worth putting a hand on has had my hand on it already, and a thing I have held has already decided what it is, and it never decides twice. I go down and pick the bar up again to be sure. It is the same bar. It is a very quiet moment. So it has to be up, and it has to be past. Above the 2nd terrace there are people clearing tunnels all day, hundreds of them, working outward and upward with their arms and their spears, and no time at all to bend down. They leave floors behind them like a tide going out. For 5 days I walk in behind them, and the 5 days are a great deal worse than that sentence makes them sound. I tell Mira's Q what I am doing before I go, because saying a thing out loud in front of people makes it much harder to come back early, and because the 4th terrace is not a place anybody sensible mentions at breakfast. Herrick repeats it back to the bench as news. Mara says nothing at all and gives me a 2nd plate against her own rules, and nobody who saw it says a word. Day 4, I get nothing. Day 5, I get nothing worth carrying, and a cut across the back of my hand from a floor I could not see properly, and should not have put a hand on at that speed. On the 5th evening, a man off one of the clearing crews stops me on the stair with his spear across his chest and asks what I am doing behind them. Picking up, I say. He looks at my hands, then back down the floor his own crew has walked the length of twice today, and he tells me there is nothing on it. He is not being unkind about it. He has been down there since the lamps came up, and he believes every word of it. I ask him whether he stopped. Stopped for what, he says, and then he gets what I am asking and does not care for it, and he goes up after his crew without saying anything else. He is the only person in 5 days who asks me a single question about any of this. Day 6. I follow a raid too closely and spend an hour and a half lying behind a spill of rubble while something works its way along the wall on the other side of it, and I am counting under my breath the entire time, because that is what my mouth does when the rest of me has run out of ideas. At the end of it, I get up and pick 60 points off a floor that 11 armed men walked over without once looking down, and then I go home to a bench and eat cold water-lined stew and say nothing about any of it to anybody. No piece of that week felt like a plan while it was happening, and if the stat did one single thing for me on any of those 5 days, I did not notice it. Day 7. The stat pays me nothing again, and it has now paid me nothing for so long that Pell has stopped watching to see what comes out of the sack. Day 8. I am sitting on the third terrace stair with my boots off, counting points, when Issa Vale sits down 4 steps above me the way somebody sits down in a place they have already decided to sit down in. Your hand went across that floor twice, she says. The second time was slower. I tell her that the second time is where the money is. She says she can see that, and then she says a number back to me, which is the number of things I picked up off it, and it is correct, and she has been somewhere above me for at least an hour. Then she asks me what a level does. She does not ask what it means. What it does, mechanically, at the bottom, in a room with one door and one bad outcome in it. And she asks like somebody who has already worked out most of the answer and wants to know which half of hers is wrong. So I tell her the ceiling doubles. The best that can happen gets better every level, and it gets better fast, and at level 9 it is 512 times the best that was ever on the table, and the numbers do what numbers do. She follows all of it. That is the thing. She does not slow me down, and she does not ask me to say it another way, and when I get 3 steps ahead of myself, she is already there waiting, and when I stop, she asks the next question, which is the correct next question. Nobody has ever done that to me. 6 years in a job where being right was all of the work and not one person ever wanted the second half of a sentence. And here is a stranger on a stair taking every step of it at speed with her hands still in her lap. So I give her the rest of it. For nothing, on a stair, in a good mood, out of nothing more complicated than the pleasure of not having to stop. The floor does not move, I tell her. Only the ceiling. Which means if a thing is already decided, there is no ceiling in it to lift. And a sure thing pays me nothing at all. Ever. Safety is the one place I am worth exactly what everybody thought I was worth on day 1. She is quiet for about 2 seconds. Thank you, she says. Then she gets up and goes down the stair past me and says thank you again at the bottom without turning round. On the 3rd terrace, a very large man comes up the last of the ramp out of breath and stands about waiting to be noticed. Issa Vale lets him wait. When she does look up, she does not thank him, and she does not offer him anything at all. He tells her where Voss sleeps, which terrace, which row, which end, and which door has the lock in it, and which one only looks as though it does. She does not write it down. She asks him one question instead, and it is not about what the man said at the ration line when he took the food off him. It is about how he stood. Murr answers it. And it takes him a while, and she listens to all of it without moving once. Then she says he may stay and goes inside, and he stands out on the terrace afterwards for some time with nowhere in particular to be. I cross the valley on that stair, 480 points across 5 days, and the last 9 of them come off a floor on the 4th terrace at the wrong end of a day nobody would have chosen, and I put them in sitting on cold steel with my boots still in my hand. Level 9, 512 times. The first thing it does is the water line, and it does it in front of everybody, and it is not heroic in any direction. There is a spare valve in the wall by Mara's tap that has been sitting there since before she came, and it is scrap, and everybody knows it is scrap. And I put my hand on it because I am walking past. It is not scrap. It goes into the housing like it was made for it, and the trickle Mara has been working with a ladle for 401 days, comes out of that wall full bore and hits the trough hard enough to soak 2 people who were not paying attention. The queue makes a noise I have never heard a queue make. Herrick says the water is coming out faster now, to a room of people watching water come out faster. Mira stands in front of it with her sleeves dripping and her mouth open and does not say one word for 11 seconds. Then she tells everybody to get back in line, and the line reforms, and Herrick informs the man beside him that she has told everybody to get back in line. There are 4 of us behind a door that locks that night. Me, Pell, Orlu, and the woman who put 4 into Mana, who Herrick has started calling the Mana one, which she hates, and which has therefore caught on across the entire terrace inside a day. Pell does not ask me anything. He puts his boots by the door with mine, which he has never done, and goes to sleep. And I lie there with 480 points spent, and a wall running water on the other side of it, thinking about a woman on a stair who took every step of it at speed, and never once asked me to slow down, and how good that felt, and I do not get any further with the thought than that. The door is shut, and the bolt is across it. Pell put his shoulder on it twice on the way in, which is a thing he does now and did not do a week ago. The new ones come in at the north end of the apron under a light that is whiter than the rest of them, and they come up off the concrete the same way we did, standing up and turning round and saying a name. Then about 40 of them stop turning round and start looking for something specific, and what they are looking for is me, and that is a thing I feel in the back of my neck before I understand it. It is day 9. Under the 3rd lamppost, a cheerful voice is explaining to several million people that the lucky idiot has now been on the terraces for over a week, and he likes the phrase enough to use it twice, and then twice more, and I have started counting. He says Aaron Voss after each one, the way you put a label on a jar. In the same breath, he says that the brother is still outside. 9 days now, he says. 9 days of watching your own handiwork with the sound up. A young man with a shaved head comes and stands in front of me on the apron and tells me he has 3 in luck. He says it like an introduction. His name is Kiv. He is maybe 20. He did his reading on the way in, and his reading was a broadcast of me hitting a wall with a bar. And there are 11 other people standing behind him, waiting for me to say something encouraging. So I do the arithmetic out loud instead. I do it standing on a crate at the edge of the ration line, because if I am going to be wrong about this, I want to be wrong at volume. 1, I say. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. That is the first 6 levels, and it is 63 points, and it buys you nothing at all, because it pays nothing worth having until 9, and 9 is 511 points, and where are you going to find them? I got mine off floors in the first week, I tell them, when 9,000 people were clearing easy tunnels in every direction at once, and nobody had time to bend down. That is over. The tunnels near the apron have been walked 3 times. The window shut behind me. I did not shut it. It shut. A man at the back does the big man's voice at me, announcing what he is about to do before he does it, which he does not do very well, and 11 people laugh, and I laugh too, and it is the last laugh anybody gets for a while. Kiv takes his 3 levels that afternoon. 9 of the others do the same. 2 do not, and I could not tell you one thing about either of their faces, and I notice that about myself standing there and do not care for it. He dies on day 11, 4 levels deep, in the 3rd terrace tunnels, in front of the little glass eyes, and the outside gets all of it because the outside gets everything that happens in the open. The girl comes to me the next morning, Nella. She is 19, and she has 5 in luck already, and she wants to know which floors I work, and in what order, and whether I would look at her route. I say the numbers to her again, all of them, slower, and I add the piece I did not say on the crate. At 5, the ceiling is 32 times, and the floor has not moved 1 inch, and the floor is what kills people. She listens to every word of it. She is not stupid, and she does not argue with any of it. Then she says that she has worked out that she has about a month either way, and that she would rather have the month with something in it, and she thanks me and goes to find a lamp. So I carry the lamp. I go with her because she is going anyway, and because a person who is going anyway should at least be able to see the floor, and we are 2 hours up past the 3rd when it happens, and it happens fast, and about 11 feet from where I am standing. I do not look away. There is a version of me who would, and he is not here, and I stand in the tunnel afterwards holding a lamp up for nobody, with my arm getting tired. Under the lamppost that night, the cheerful voice has a name for them. The Luck Kids, he says. He tries 2 others first and neither of them fits in his mouth, and then he finds that one and says it 4 times inside a minute, and by morning it has stuck to every one of them. 11 more come in this week specifically to do it. He says that number out loud on air like a score. By the end of the week, it is 19. I go up in those days because I do not have anything else to do with my hands. Level 10, level 11, and on the 19th day, on a floor above the 4th terrace with my knees in somebody else's water, level 12. 4,096 times. That is the number I worked out with my finger on the last row of a table on the first day, while the man beside me put 10 into strength and was right. I sit down on the wet floor when it lands, and there is nobody to tell. Pell does not ask me things anymore. Orlu would say, "Well done," and mean it, and not know what he was saying it about. Mira would want to know what it was for. The one person on this floor who would have taken the sentence at speed is a woman on a stair who said thank you twice. So I say it to nobody, out loud, in an empty tunnel, and then I get up and go home, and halfway down I stop and say it again, and it works exactly as well the second time as it did the first. What I do with it is arm the waterline. 4 more of them, one at a time over 4 days. A hook for Mera that does not open under load. A lamp for Orlu that does not gutter. Rope. A blade for a man on the 2nd terrace who has been cutting bread with a piece of tin. They all get handed over in the open with the queue watching, because a thing handed over in a corner is a favor, and a thing handed over in front of 40 people is a fact. Herrick watches me do the rope one and then explains the rope to the man I gave it to. Then he explains it again to Mera. Then he tells me that the rope is a good rope and that I gave it to the man, and I say yes, and he seems satisfied. Under the lamppost, the cheerful voice asks the question the outside has been chewing on, and he asks it well, and I will give him that. Why does he not simply go and get the 100,000, says Taskoro, to several million people? He is the richest thing in there. He could walk to that door tomorrow. Then he answers it himself, in the confident voice of a man who has never been in a room with any of us. Because down there he is a god, he says, and up here he is a man who tests systems, and nobody gives that up. He likes it so much he says it twice, and out there they are already saying it back to him. It is completely wrong, and it is the sort of wrong that sounds like insight, and that is the worst kind, and there is nobody up there to tell him so. The bunk row comes down for rehanging on day 20, because the bunk row comes down every month, and has done since before any of us arrived here. It hangs off the wall on chains and hooks, a sleeping crib for 11 people, and the concrete it hangs in is old and crumbling, and once a month it gets dropped, checked, and put back up. 2 people who have done it before run it. It is the most ordinary job on the terrace. Herrick tells me at breakfast that there were people through our row on both of the days before, 6 of them, and that they touched everything, and none of them slept there. He tells it to 5 people. 3 are eating, and 2 are talking to each other. Nobody asks him a single question about it. I hear him. I hear him as you hear a man who has been slightly wrong about a count every night for 2 weeks. Pell takes the high end. He does not ask whether he can. He goes up the wall to the top hook with the pin in his teeth before anybody has finished deciding who is doing what, and then he looks down at the row from up there. For about 4 seconds, he is the most dangerous-looking person on the 2nd terrace, and he knows it. And he has wanted that since the day he landed. I go underneath. That is where the load is, and that is where somebody has to be, and there are men on this terrace with real arms who would have done it better, and I do not wait for them. The high hook comes out of the concrete. I get a hand on the frame, and the frame is a frame. I reach for the wedge on the floor beside me, and the wedge is a wedge, and I put it in, and it does what a wedge does, and no more than that. And there is a length of rope across the bench that is rope, only rope. Exactly as much rope as it looks. Everything in that row has already been what it is for 2 days, and there is nothing left in any of it for my hands to find, and I learn that kneeling under a load with a boy above me. The crib swings on the one chain still holding, and it goes into the wall, and Pel's hand is between the frame and the concrete when it gets there. There is a sound. Then there is a lot of shouting and 11 people lifting at once, and the frame comes off the wall, and somebody is holding his arm up, and Mara is there before I have got out from under it. The healer works out of a room on the second terrace with a curtain and a table. 600 marks for an arm. Everybody on the apron knows that number, and it is the reason nobody here has an arm. I put 600 marks on the table in front of him in the open with the curtain pulled back, and people watch me do it, and he counts it, and he is not a bad man. He works on the hand for a long time, then he comes out and tells me, plainly standing up, that the hand will stay on, that it will not die and it will not go bad and the boy will keep it. And I ask him the other question and he answers that one too. It will not close, he says. Not properly, not on anything that matters, not with any weight in it, and not later either. 600 marks, and that is what it bought. 15 a roll for bandage, and he needs 3 of them, and I buy those too, and the buying of them is the only thing left I am any use for, and I do it twice a day for a week, and it does not get better, and it does not get worse. On the third terrace, 2 people are giving a report to a woman who is standing at a window with her back to them. She does not ask whether the boy is alive. She does not ask which hand. The first thing she asks is what the man did in the first 10 seconds, and when the taller one starts to summarize it, she stops him and makes him start again from the beginning and give it to her in order. He got under it, he says. Then he went for the wedge and the rope. Which one first, she says. The wedge, he says, and then the rope. Then he was looking at the floor. She hears him out and asks 2 more questions about the looking at the floor. She does not write anything down. She has never written anything down in her life. I am on the step outside the healer's room 2 hours later with a roll of bandage in my lap when I work it out. Not that somebody did it. That comes first and it is easy. What comes after it is that 6 people spent 2 days making an ordinary room ordinary forever, and there is exactly one thing in the world that makes that worth 2 whole days of them. It is a sentence I said out loud on a stair on the 8th day in a very good mood because somebody was finally keeping up. I built that room. She only had to go and stand in it for 2 days with 6 pairs of hands, and she did not even have to do that part herself. I sit on the step and do not do anything clever about it, because there is nothing clever to do about it, and inside the curtain, a boy who stopped asking me questions on the 4th day is not asking me any now. Down on the apron, the arrival light comes on white at the north end, and about 90 people land in it and start standing up and turning round. One of them does not turn round for a while. He is on his knees in real plate, bought plate, scavenged and fitted and paid for, with a sword across his back that is too long for a man to draw standing up, and the apron goes quiet in a ring around him. Then he gets up, and he is a head taller than anybody standing near him, and he turns round, and every person on that floor who has ever stood under the 3rd lamppost already knows whose brother he is. The word comes up the ramp faster than a person could carry it, which on the 2nd terrace means somebody shouting it up the stairwell and 11 people repeating it wrong on the way along the row. Herrick gets to me last and gets it right. Your brother is on the apron, he says. He has come in. And then he says it again, in case, and this time he adds that the man is very large. 22 days. That is the number the little glass eyes have been saying out loud since the 4th day, in a cheerful voice, every single day, so that by now the outside can count it in its sleep, and so can everybody down here. I stand up and say where I am going, out loud, in front of the water queue, because there are about 400 people down there who lost somebody in the week I arrived, and most of them know whose name is on the bottom of my form. Mara tells me to wait for morning. I say no. She asks what I mean to do when I get there, and I tell her that I do not know, and it is the truth. And she says that is not a plan, and that is also the truth. I go down the ramp at a run with a bar in my hand and no build worth mentioning, and it takes the best part of half an hour, and I do not think about one thing the entire way down. He is on his knees when I come off the bottom. There are 5 men round him. One of them lost a wife in the 2nd week and one lost a brother of his own, and I know both of those because they have said them out loud twice already, and none of them is enjoying this, which somehow makes it worse to watch. And Raid does not lift a hand. He could. That is the thing that stops me at the bottom of the ramp with my mouth open. He is in real plate, bought and fitted, with a sword across his back longer than the man swinging at him is tall, and he takes it kneeling with his arms down. He is not being brave, and he is not making a point. He has decided somewhere on the outside that he has this coming, and he would rather have it now, at the front, in the open, than carry it around in here for a month waiting. Then the tunnel on the west side lets something out at the crowd. There is no warning, and there is no shout, and about 200 people go backwards at once, and there is a woman with a child in the second row who does not go anywhere, because there is nowhere for her to go. My brother gets up out of the middle of 5 men, walks 4 steps sideways, and stands in front of her. He does not draw. There is no time to draw a sword that long, and he knows it, so he takes it on the shoulder plate with his weight going forward and his back foot set, and the thing comes off him and goes down and does not get up again, and he steps on its neck to be sure, and then looks round to see whether anybody needs him to do that twice. Nobody on that floor has ever seen a man do that on his first day. I have watched a lot of people come in and go up and not come back, and I have never seen one arrive able to hold ground. He says his build out loud when somebody asks, because somebody always asks. 6 into strength, 4 into endurance. He explains it in about 11 words, standing there bleeding from the mouth. Everybody I watched die with speed died reaching for something, he says. Everybody I watched die with mana died waiting for it to work. It is correct. It is the best 10 points anybody has spent in this place since the first morning, and he did not get it out of a table. He got it out of thousands of people dying on a screen in a rented flat while he did not sleep. Then he sees me. I have been thinking about this for 22 days, on and off, and mostly on. I have had 4 or 5 whole speeches ready. One of them was quite good. I ask him whether he has eaten. That is what comes out. He stands there in his plate with his mouth open and his hands starting to come up, and I ask him again, because he has not answered, and I mean it, because he has just come off the light and nobody eats on the first day. What happens next takes the better part of an hour, and it is the worst hour of my brother's life, and I would like that on the record, and I did not do one thing to make it happen. He tries to have the argument, and he tries every door in it. He tells me it was a joke and waits. He tells me it was not a joke and waits. He says the word sorry once, badly, in the wrong place, and then twice more in better places, and each time he says it, he is listening for the thing that comes back at him. Nothing comes back at him. I keep asking him whether he wants to sit down, and there is a bench 11 feet away with nobody on it, and I keep pointing at the bench. He goes for anger next, because that is the only tool he has ever brought anywhere. He gets loud about the flat and the car, and about what he sold, and here is where he says the number, and he says it the way a man puts a receipt on a table. I sold the flat, he says, and the car, and your books, and I am not proud of the books. It came to a number I am not saying out loud in front of these people. The door here costs 100,000 marks, so I bought a sword, and I still have nothing for him. I am not being strong, and I am not being merciful, and I am not holding anything back, and that is what he cannot get his hands on and what nobody watching can understand. I look for it while he is standing there. I go and check, like a man checking a pocket he knows is empty. There is no anger in me anywhere, and there never has been, and I do not know why either, and I have stopped expecting anybody to believe that. He backs into a crate at some point and knocks it over and says sorry to it, out loud, to a crate. Then he picks it up and puts it back and squares it off, and about 60 people watch him do that, and nobody laughs, and that is somehow the lowest moment of the hour. In a kitchen, a long way from any of this, the screen is on with the sound off, and there are 2 men in the same frame on it for the first time since either of them was a child. Des Vos is standing up. She has been standing up for some time. Her tea has gone the color of the table, and she has not touched it, and she is not going to. Down in the street below the window, a woman of about 50 is standing at the curb with a bag in front of her in both hands, looking up, not knocking, because she knocked already on the second day and was told he did not live here. Des turns the sound up. The cheerful man is enjoying himself. He is saying that this is the moment we have all been waiting for, and then he says something else in the same voice, with real relish in it. A man does not sell everything he owns and walk into a death game to say, sorry. He came in to finish it, says Taskoro. That is what I think. I said it first, and I will say it again. Des turns the sound off. She stands there with the remote still up. On the silent screen, her elder son is picking up a crate he has knocked over and squaring it off against the others, and taking his time about it and getting it straight. "That is not a man finishing anything," she says, to a room with nobody in it, in the voice she has used for both of them since they were small. Then she puts the remote down on the arm of the chair and does not turn the sound back on. In the end, my brother makes his own demonstration happen because I will not, and because he has to have something to hold. "Hold that out," he says. "The bar. Hold it out." I tell him no twice. He asks a third time, and there is something in the way he asks it that makes refusing worse than agreeing, so I hold the bar out at arm's length in front of about 200 people. He does it properly. He does not tap it. He takes the sword he sold a flat for in both hands and puts everything he has into a bar of rusted scrap I picked up off a tunnel floor on the first day. The bar rings. My arm goes numb to the elbow and I drop it. And I am on one knee, and I have to look at my hand for a second to check it is still doing what hands do. The sword is ruined, not chipped. There is a bite out of the edge you could put a thumb in, and a second one halfway down the flat, where a blade is not supposed to have an opinion, and it will still take a man's arm off, and it will never again be the thing he bought. On day one, he was right, and I was wrong. And it was not close. It is now day 22, and it is not close in the other direction, and both of us are looking at the same piece of scrap on the concrete. Level 14, 16,384 times, bought in 3 days off the floors above the 5th terrace, because a good day at 4,096 is not the same animal as a good day at 32. That night, a man on the apron asks my brother whether he is going to take luck. And he asks it in the loud, helpful voice of somebody who believes he is the first person ever to think of it. He could. He has 10 points, and everybody out there watched him watch me do it, and everybody out there is waiting, and it would be the finest television anybody has ever produced. "No," says Raid. Then he does the arithmetic out loud where the little glass eyes can hear it. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Nothing at all until 9, and 511 points to reach it, and no unpicked floors left anywhere near this one. He names Kiv, he names the girl, he gets both names right, and he says the levels they died at, and there are people standing on that apron who did not know either of them had a name. "It works because he watched us," he says. "Every hour of it. 22 days. Anybody who copies him now is buying the 22 days without the floors. And I have seen what that costs, and I do not intend to be the 9th one this week." Under the third lamppost, the cheerful voice has to repeat it back to millions of people, and he does not sound cheerful, and for about 4 seconds he does not have anything of his own to add. So the man who posted the form is the only person in this entire business who did the reading twice. And outside, the thing turns right over, and my brother becomes something other than a punchline in about the time it takes to say 5 sentences. I am the one who wrecks it 4 hours later, in front of the 2nd terrace, meaning nothing but kindness by it. We are building a hauling line off the apron, rope I rolled, hooks I rolled, a counterweight cradle on an anchor plate, 4 at a time up the outside face for nothing at all, and the reason is not the ramp. A boy lost a hand on this terrace with me kneeling under him, and the ramp is the only danger left that I can do one thing about. The top anchor goes in tomorrow night on the outside, face 9 terraces above nothing, and everybody standing there wants that job, and my brother wants it more than anybody has ever wanted anything. I give him the bottom. "Mind the crowd," I say. "Keep the cradle clear, count them on, count them off." And I mean it as well as a thing like that can be meant, and I say it in front of about 90 people. And 90 people hear a man putting a child somewhere he cannot hurt himself, all of them at once, in the same half second, including the one it is about. I hear it about half a second after it leaves my mouth, and by then it is standing in the room with everybody. Somebody at the back says something to somebody else. Herrick explains to Raid what minding the crowd involves. Raid says, "All right, that is the answer. All right," and he goes and stands where I put him and starts counting the cradle, and he does it properly, and he does not look at me again all evening. Later the terrace goes quiet the same as it does when the lamps come down to night burn. It is not silence, it is about 40 people deciding separately to stop talking. Mara is at the water line with the queue done and the trough drained and her sleeves still wet to the elbow, and she picks up a lamp off the shelf by the wall and takes it with her when she goes. Nobody asks her what she wants a lamp for. Nobody stops her. I am 11 feet away and I watch her do it, and I do not say one word because I am busy being pleased with a rope. And on the outside face of the second terrace, in the dark, where nobody is supposed to be after the lamps go down, there are 2 people. The anchor is not due to go in until tomorrow night. On the outside face of the second terrace, there is a ledge the width of a boot, and below it, there is 9 terraces of nothing, and Raid Voss is out on it tonight, in the dark, with the top anchor under one arm. Maradoon is standing in the gap of the maintenance hatch with the lamp held out at the end of her arm. She has not said anything for a while. She has been holding the lamp at the same height for 11 minutes, and her arm has started to come down in small stages. The line comes up short. Not badly, just a forearm short of the last hook, and the hook is set further along the face than anybody standing on solid ground would have guessed. Raid tries it twice. He can hold the anchor or he can reach the hook. The ledge that would let him do both is a handspan narrower than his boot, and he is 19 stone in plate. He says a word, then he says her name, and then he says that he is going to go back in and get somebody, and he starts to move, and she says no. I am 8 stone, and my feet are half the size of yours, she says. Give me the pin. He does not give her the pin straight away. They stand on either side of the hatch for a while, with the lamp between them, and neither of them moves. Then he gives her the pin. She puts the lamp down on the hatch lip, pointing outward, and she takes her boots off and puts them side by side against the wall, and she goes out onto the face. She is out there a long time. Raid holds the anchor with both arms and his shoulder into the wall, and he keeps talking to her the entire time, steadily, about nothing, about the queue, about the crate, about a man he saw once, and she does not answer any of it, and he does not stop. She gets it done. The pin goes in and the line comes tight, and she comes back along the face with one hand flat on the concrete all the way back, and she gets to the hatch and he takes her wrist and she comes in. Nothing is broken. Nobody is cut. She sits down on the floor inside the hatch with her back against the wall and her knees up and does not get up for some minutes. Raid sits down opposite her. He says one thing to her then, quietly, and it takes him 3 goes to get it out. She does not answer it. She picks the lamp up and goes back down to the water line, and she never says one word about any of this to me, then or afterwards, and neither does he. The rope opens in the morning and it works. 4 at a time in a cradle, up the outside face on rope, I rolled through hooks I rolled, off a counterweight plate bolted into the apron, and it takes 7 minutes and it costs nothing at all. I write it first. I say why out loud in front of the 60 people waiting. An untested hook lets go about a foot into the swing and puts a man on concrete from a height, and if it is going to happen, it is going to happen to the man who made the hook. Then I get in it loaded, with 2 crates of ballast, in the worst version of the ride there is, and go up the face and come back down, and my hands are wet on the rail the entire time, and nothing happens at all. Raid counts them on and counts them off at the bottom. He does it exactly right. He calls the numbers, he keeps the cradle clear, he sends nobody up until the last 4 are off, and he does not say one word to me all morning. By the 3rd hour, there is a queue for the rope, and it is a longer queue than the one at the lift has ever been. Captain Saab stands at his gate with the key on the cord round his neck and the doors of the cage open behind him. Nobody gets in it. It is 4 minutes to the second terrace, and it is safe, and it has never once dropped anybody, and it is 50 marks, and the rope is 7 minutes and free. His 40 walk past him. It takes that day and the next in 2s and 3s with their crates and their kit, going to the plate on the apron to see about work on the ropes, and he greets every single one of them by name on the way past. Morning, Taro. Morning, Besky. He gets all 40 right. He does it in the same voice he has used since the first week, with nothing changed in it anywhere, and most of them say something back and almost none of them use his name. I go over there on the second afternoon. It takes me that long, and I have to live with that, because I was busy with rope, and I did not think about him once until I saw the cage standing open with nobody in it. I offer him the bottom of the line. It is real work, and it is his work. counting people on and off and keeping order, and there is nobody alive better at it. And I say all of that badly and too fast. No thank you, Arn Voss, he says, and there is nothing after it. My name, right? First time, the same as he has said everybody's name since the day he got here, and then he goes back to standing at a gate that nobody is walking through. He locks the cage at the end of that day as he locks it every day, and puts the key back on the cord, and puts the cord back inside his collar. Nobody is watching him do it except me, and I am the last person on this floor he wants watching. Herrick calls him the lift man that evening, twice. The second time it lands wrong on the bench and everybody feels it, and Herrick cannot work out why, and explains at some length that it is what the man does, so it is a reasonable thing to call him. Somebody tells him to leave it. He explains it again, differently, to make it clearer, and then a third time with his hands, and by then 4 people have taken their bowls and gone to sit at the other end of the bench. Here's what happens next, and I want to be accurate about it, because the lampposts are already making it into a story about me, and it is not one. They do not come to me. They go to the rope. There is a difference, and it matters. I did not hire one of them, I did not ask for one of them, and there was no moment at any point where a man stood in front of me and said that he was mine. They just keep turning up. In the morning, at the plate, in ones and twos, and they work the cradle and the lines, and they eat off the water cue afterwards, and then they are there again the next morning, and after 4 days of that, it is a thing whether anybody decides it or not. That is how a crowd forms. It is not a speech. It is people coming back to the same place at the same time until somebody has to start counting them. And the first thing my free rope does is put the price of a bunk on the second terrace up, because everybody on the apron can get up here now, and nobody wants to go back down. 30 a night becomes 35 inside 4 days. The people who have to pay that are people who have never had anything, and one of them says so to my face at the waterline, calmly, without shouting, and he is entirely right, and I do not have an answer for him that is not a sentence about ropes. So I pay it. For him, and for the ones behind him, out of what comes off the floors above the 4th, and that is not generosity, that is a man buying his way out of an argument he has lost. 18. Sleeping behind my door by the end of that week. 35 a night now, and 235 the week. Coins out of my hand into Mara's at the trough where the queue can watch it happen, because she is the one everybody trusts to hold anything. I am not saving anything. There is nothing to save. It goes out as fast as it comes in, and there is a number stamped in a slab down there that I have not got 100th of and will not have this year. Level 15. 32,768 times, picked up over 3 nights off the floors above the 4th terrace behind other people's fighting, doing the only thing I have ever done for a living, and the only thing I know how to do here. 422 days, says Mira, when Orlu asks her at the queue, and she says it as she always says it, and there is nothing wrong with how she says it, and she goes on to the next person. That is the thing about all of it. There is nothing wrong with any of it, and I cannot put a finger anywhere on it. She runs the queue the same. Firsts before seconds. Nobody in front of anybody who was there first. The ladle points at what it has always pointed at, and she still sends people to the back without raising her voice, and none of it has changed anywhere. She sits down twice that week. Both times somebody comes to ask her something, and both times she gets straight back up, and both times she is up before they have finished the question. I ask Herrick whether Mara is all right. Herrick is the wrong person to ask about anybody, and I know that. And I ask him anyway because he is the one on the bench, and because asking Raid would mean saying something to Raid. He says she is all right. Then he says she has been on the waterline 422 days. Then he says that is a long time, and I say yes, and he says it again. She does not tell me. He does not tell me, and I do not walk 11 feet down my own terrace and ask the woman herself, because I am on the rope all day and because asking would take 4 minutes, and I have 4 minutes about as often as I have anything else. Raid is at the bottom of the line every morning, counting people on and counting them off. And twice that week I go down there with something to say, and both times I get as far as the plate and then find some rope to look at. He knows I have come down. He carries on calling the numbers, twice, 4 days apart, and it is the longest conversation either of us gets. Word comes down about the 27th raid on the 4th day. Somebody says it at the waterline while the queue is still moving, in one sentence, like a thing everybody already expects. 27 now, he says. They went up past the 9th on Tuesday and it is Friday. 26, says a man behind him, and is told that he is out of date and takes it well enough. Nobody stops eating. That is what I notice. The number goes up by 1 and the queue does not stop moving, and Mara fills the next bowl, and a raid is 40 people, and I think about that for the length of time it takes to eat, and it is not long enough. Herrick counts the terrace that night as he counts it every night out loud, walking the row and touching the end of each bunk with 2 fingers. 19, he says, to a row of people who are mostly already lying down with their boots off and their backs to him. 18, says Orlu without looking up. 18, says the Manhwa one, who hates being called that and has stopped fighting it. Somebody else says 18 from the far end without even counting, because it has been 18 for 6 days and everybody knows it. Herrick counts it again. He does it slowly, and he says the numbers out loud as he goes, and he touches every bunk end with 2 fingers, and it takes him a while, and 2 people go to sleep during it. 19, he says again, in the same voice, and it is the voice of a man who has never once considered that being disagreed with is information. Then he explains his method. He explains that he counts the bunks and not the people because people move, and that he counts from the water end because the light is better, and that he has been doing it since before most of us came up here. Nobody is listening by the end of the first sentence. Orlu turns over. The Manhwa one puts her arm across her eyes. Somebody down the row asks him, without any heat in it at all, to please shut up. So he does. He sits down on the end of his own bunk and stops talking and puts his boots together, and the row goes quiet, and the lamps come down to night burn. And he is right. Nobody on this terrace knows that, and neither does he, and the row goes to sleep with the count wrong in every head in it except his. By the 4th night, the row has made a game of it, and the game is that somebody says the number before Herrick gets to the end so that he has to start again. 19, says Herrick, from the water end, with his 2 fingers on the last bunk end, and his mouth already open for the explanation. 18, says half the row, together, in the flat-board chorus of people who have been doing this since Tuesday. Somebody at the far end does the big man's voice for it, announcing that he is now going to say 18, and then saying 18, and it gets a decent laugh. Herrick explains his method. He gets about as far as the part about counting bunks and not people, because people move, and by then 4 of them are asleep, and the Manhwa one has put her arm across her eyes. He finishes the explanation anyway. He always finishes it. He is explaining it to a row of backs, and he does not appear to mind, and when he is done he says good night to everybody by name, and 2 of them say it back. I do not correct him, and I do not defend him. I lie there with a sack behind my head thinking about a floor above the 5th terrace that I have now walked over twice, and I am no more use to that man than anybody else on the row is. There is money in that sack, and it is not mine. 19 bunks at 35 a night is what it is for, and the waterline and the bandage, and whatever a healer costs when somebody needs one, and it goes out every week and comes back in every week, and it never gets any bigger. But there is more of it in one place than anywhere else in this world. And I weigh 11 stone, and I have never hit anybody in my life, and there is not one person on the apron who has not done that arithmetic at some point in the last fortnight. I say so at the waterline on the 4th day, in front of about 30 people, because I would rather have it out in the open than have people being polite about it. A man holding nothing is not worth coming through a door for, I tell them. So it will be the room, and it will be at night, and when it happens the sack goes behind me, and I stand in the door. Mara tells me that is the stupidest thing she has heard this week. Orlu says he will stand there instead. I tell them no, and I tell them why, and the why is that if it is behind 18 people, then 18 people are what has to be got through, and if it is behind me, it is only me. That is what I decide out loud in front of the queue 4 days before it happens, and nobody in that queue talks me out of it, and I do not give any of them much of a chance to. They come on the 4th night through the door quietly, and the door does not break because a man on the inside opens. He has been sleeping 4 bunks down from Orlu for 4 nights. He came up on my own rope. He has eaten at my waterline, and I have said good evening to him twice, and I could not tell you one thing about his face. 19, says Herrick in the dark, at the top of his voice, from the water end, just as he has said it every night since Tuesday. And this time nobody has any time at all to tell him he is wrong. What happens then takes about 90 seconds, and I have got very little of it in order. I get to the door, and I get the sack behind me, and that is the entirety of my contribution to the defense of the second terrace. The first one comes in and puts me into the frame with his shoulder, and something in my chest goes, and I am on the floor at the bottom of the doorway, looking sideways at Boots. I do not get up for the rest of it. There are 6 of them. They are bigger than anybody on this row, and one of them is enormous. And they know the shape of the room because the man who opened the door has been drawing it for them for 4 nights with his eyes open in the dark. 18 people get up, not all at once and not bravely. Mira comes off her bunk with the hook in her hand, the one I put in her palm at the trough 12 days ago in front of the queue, and she puts it into a man's forearm and holds onto it with both hands and does not let go while he swings her. Orlu goes past me with his lamp lit and puts it on the floor in the middle of the room so that everybody can see, and that is the single most useful thing anybody does in those 90 seconds, and it is a lamp that does not go out when it is kicked. The bread man has a blade that used to be a piece of tin. The Manhwa one has a length of rope with a hook spliced into one end. It is not a weapon and was never intended as one, and she uses it as a weapon. And Pell comes over the top of me with the flat knife in his good hand, the one I gave him on the apron on the second day when he was still asking me questions. And he is 14 and he weighs nothing, and he goes at the enormous one anyway. He does not do any damage. He gets picked up and put into a wall. But he is the third one moving, and the third one moving is what tells the rest of a room what it is. I do not win this fight, and I want that clear before anybody up in the lamppost starts calling it my night, because it is not mine. I am on the floor in the doorway with 2 broken ribs and a sack under my head, and I watch 18 people I have never asked for anything take a room back with things I put in their hands weeks ago in front of a queue, and every one of those things does exactly what it turned out to be. It is over in the time it takes to boil water. 4 of them go back out the door they came in by. One of them does not get up. The one who opened the door is on the floor by the water wall with Herrick sitting on him, and Herrick does not appear to have decided that so much as arrived at it. The sack never leaves the room. Nobody so much as gets a hand on it, and by the end of the 90 seconds there are 3 people standing between it and the door who did not put themselves there on purpose. Afterwards, Mara stands in the middle of the floor with the hook still in her hand and her sleeves wet, and tells the room, in the voice she uses for the cue, that nobody is to touch the man on the floor by the wall. Then people say things about me out loud, and I lie there and listen to them, and none of it is about my hands. He gave me this in front of the line, the bread man says, and holds up a piece of tin, 11 days ago, in front of everybody, and he never once came back to me about it. Orlu says something about the lamp. The Manhwa one says that the rope was for hauling and that she has been sleeping with it under her bunk for a fortnight, and now she knows why, and it is not true, and it is a much better line than the truth. Nobody says anything about a rusted bar, or a valve, or a level. That is the difference between this night and the ration line, and I am on the floor and I cannot get up, and I understand it perfectly well. My brother arrives 11 minutes after it finishes. He comes up the outside face without the cradle, in plate, at night, which I would not have believed possible if I had not seen him standing in the hatch with his hands bleeding. He has come from the apron, and he has come fast, and he is too late by 11 minutes. He stops in the doorway, and he takes in the room in about 2 seconds, because he is very good at that, and what he sees is that it is finished, and that it was finished without him. He does not say anything. He picks me up off the floor, carefully with a hand under each arm, and puts me on a bunk, and then he goes and stands the door frame back into its housing and holds it there while somebody finds a pin, and he does all of it without a word. For a man whose entire life is being the one who fixed it, coming second is worse than not coming at all. He takes it standing up. That is new for him. On the 3rd terrace, a man is standing in front of a window with his hands at his sides, waiting to be told what happens to him. Isa Vale does not raise her voice. She does not raise it in any circumstances, and everybody in her 40 has worked out by now that this is not mercy, it is that she has never once needed to. What was the count? She says. He tells her. 18 every night for a week, he says, and then me, so 19. Did anybody say 19? She says. The big slow one, he says. Every night. 4 nights running, and every night they told him he was wrong and he said it again, and last night he said it in the dark while we were coming through the door. And how long, she says, did it take anybody in that room to believe him? He thinks about it properly before he answers, and everybody who works for her learns that inside a week. He does not think anybody did, he says. They were already up by then, and it was not because of him, and as far as he could tell in the dark, not one person in that room ever changed their mind about the number. She is quiet for a moment, then she says thank you and tells him to go and eat, and he stands there for a second because he has come up here expecting something else entirely and has not been given it. Then he asks her, carefully, why they do not simply finish the man, and it is clear from the way he asks it that he has been carrying the question for weeks. I am perception, she says. That is all I have ever been. I have never hit anybody in my life. I cannot lift a full crate, and on the first day I had no hands in this world except my own too. He starts to say something about the 40 of them and what 40 people could do in a night. She goes on over the top of him without changing speed at all. And I do not want him dead, she says. I want to know what he is. That is the one thing in this place I cannot send somebody else to fetch, and it is the only thing I have ever asked anybody for. He does not understand it, and she does not explain it a second time to anybody ever about anything. What she does instead is tell him what is going to happen to him this week, where he will stand, what will be asked of him, and what it will cost, in order, in detail, and she is not threatening him with any of it. And that is why 40 people follow a woman who has never bought a thing in her life. She tells you what is coming, and she has not been wrong yet. And in a place where everything that happens to you is a coin going over, being told the truth about the odds is worth more than food and costs her nothing to hand out. Herrick gets his credit the next morning, and it lasts about 90 seconds, which I am fairly sure is a record for him in either direction. Mara says it first, at the waterline, with the queue stopped, and it is the only time in 400 and some days that Q has ever stopped for a speech. She says that the count was 19, and that one man in this place said so 4 nights running. Everybody claps. It is a real one. Herrick goes the color of a brick and looks at his boots and does not know what to do with his hands. Then Orlu makes a joke about it, a good one, about counting bunks and not people, and Herrick explains the joke back to Orlu so that Orlu can enjoy it properly, and then explains it to the man beside Orlu, and inside a minute and a half the queue has started moving again, and it is over. He is right once. He is not right about anything else before or after, and nobody down here asks him for a number. Mara does not say one word to me about the wall. She has now not said it for 6 days. She hands me my bowl with the ladle and asks about my ribs and goes on down the line. My level does not move that week. Not 1 point of it, and not the week after either, and I have walked every floor below the 9th that anybody has ever bled on. Somebody asks me at the bench in the middle of all this why I do not simply buy protection, since apparently I can buy anything. Because there is nothing on sale in this place that my own hands do not already make better, I tell him. And the one person who is actually coming for me does not sell anything and has never bought anything, and there is nothing in the world I could put in front of her. Level 16 costs 32,768 points. I say the number out loud at the bench once, in the same voice I would use for the weather, and then I let it sit there in the middle of the table and nobody picks it up. The 28th raid goes up past the 9th terrace on the 29th day, and the apron turns out to watch them start, as it always does. 40 of them. They go up the long way with lamps and rope, and they are cheerful about it at the bottom, and 2 of the people watching them go are off my terrace, and both of them say out loud, standing on my rope plate, that they intend to be in the 29th. The 28th does not come back. And the night after that, things start coming down off the upper terraces, one at a time, the way water finds a crack and then finds the same crack again. 4 nights after the 28th raid fails, the upper terraces start emptying themselves downward, and whatever is doing it takes the third to second ramp, because the third to second ramp is the way down. You can hear it coming for about 2 hours, and that is the worst of it. It is not sudden, and it is not hidden, and by the time it is close enough to matter, the terrace has had 2 hours of standing about, not saying so. I am on the apron when those 2 hours start, because that is where the crates are, and because I have been buying what the second terrace is going to need tonight out loud, in front of the people who are going to need it. Lamp oil. Bandage at 15 a roll, and I take 9 rolls. 2 crates of ration and the Waterline's share on top. I say every price while I am counting the coins out, because a man who does that in public is a man nobody has to wonder about afterwards. The route home is the apron to second ramp. It is a different ramp entirely from the one at the far end, and it is most of an hour on a good day and 40 minutes, if you go up it hard with nothing in your arms. Or it is 7 minutes on the rope, and that is the entire reason I built the rope. So I go to the rope first, and there are 4 people sitting in the counterweight cradle with their hands in their laps. I know 2 of them by sight, off the ration line. None of them is armed. Not one of them says anything to me at all, and when I put my hand on the rail, one of them moves along politely to make room, as though I might be thinking of sitting down too. The line will not lift while the cradle is occupied. That is not a fault in it. That is how a counterweight works, and I built it that way with my own hands 11 days ago, and explained it out loud to about 60 people at the time. I could pull them out of it. That is the honest answer, and I want it said before anybody asks me. 4 people who will not resist, and a man could drag them off one at a time, and the man who could do that in under a minute weighs 19 stone and is 9 terraces above me holding a door. So I go to the ramp, and there are 40 of them in it. They are standing like people in a queue, spread out along the climb in 1s and 2s, with a good few feet between each of them, and there is not one weapon anywhere among the lot of them. They are not blocking it. I want that understood, because it is the entire point of what happens next. The ramp is open. Any person in the works may walk up it whenever they like, and none of these people will lay a finger on him. The first one sees me coming and steps aside. He does it properly. He turns his body, he moves to the wall, he waits until I am level with him, and he says, "Good evening," and that takes about 4 seconds. So does the second one. So does the third, who is a woman of about 60 who says good evening twice because I do not answer her the first time. I stop 3 steps up and do the arithmetic where they can hear me do it, because I would rather they knew that I know. 40 people, I say, out loud, to nobody in particular. 4 seconds each, 160 seconds, and I am carrying 2 crates. Nobody answers me. The 4th one is already turning to the wall with his hands where I can see them, and further up somebody coughs, and it is the only sound in the ramp. So I walk into it. All of it, the 160, because the other thing on offer is standing at the bottom of a rope, waiting for 4 people to decide to stand up, and waiting has no number in it anywhere. I count. That is what my mouth does when the rest of me has run out of ideas. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and I am not a quarter of the way up it yet. There is nothing in that ramp for my hands. Not one thing in the entire climb is undecided. There is no bad outcome anywhere in it that could have gone another way, and no good one either, and 40 polite people have taken every range out of a corridor with arithmetic a child could do. Some of them are ashamed. That is a thing I did not expect and cannot put down anywhere. 2 of them will not look at me, and one of them says sorry quietly at about the halfway mark, and steps aside as fast as everybody else. At 60 seconds, a woman I have never seen before says good evening and goes to the wall. At about 100, Murr steps aside. He is standing 4 from the top with his arms at his sides. He turns his body, moves to the wall, and waits until I am level, like the 39 others, and it takes him about 4 seconds, and neither of us says one word to the other. He has a coat on, and it is the same coat. I have 2 crates in my arms, and my mouth is still counting. I go past him and up, and neither of us turns round. 160 seconds. I come out of the top of that ramp with my chest burning, and I am 2 minutes and 40 seconds late, and I know exactly what that has cost before I can see one thing. At the head of the ramp, a woman is standing with her back to it. She is not watching. She has her hands together in front of her, facing the wall of the third terrace, and there is a man beside her who keeps glancing down and then making himself stop. "He is coming out now," she says. The man looks over the edge and starts to say something about how she cannot possibly see the ramp from here. She says a number instead, 160. She says it about 4 seconds before Aaron Voss comes out of the top of the ramp with 2 crates in his arms, and then she goes inside and does not watch that either. Orlu is dead. He is by the water wall with his lamp still lit beside him, the one that does not go out when it is kicked, and it is the only thing at that end of the terrace still doing its job properly. 3 others with him. All 4 of them were sleeping behind my door, and all 4 were at that end of the row because I told them 4 days ago, out loud, that it was the safe end, and I was right about that every night up to this one. Pell is at the wall with a bowl of water and a cloth doing what can be done for people who are past it. He does not look up when I come in, and he does not ask me anything, and he has not asked me anything in 29 days. Mara is on her feet with the ladle. The queue has formed, because the queue always forms, and she is putting water into people's hands with her sleeves wet to the elbow the way they have been for 400 and some days. It is the same motion. It is not the same thing at all. She does it without looking at one face, and when she gets to me, she puts the cup in my hand and moves along, and she does not ask about my chest, and she does not ask about the crates. Somebody says the word ramp, then somebody says it louder, and inside 4 minutes there are 30 people at the head of the second terrace stair who have decided to go up it tonight. I get in front of them, and I do not say one word about right or wrong, because I have nothing to say about right and wrong, and none of them would want it from me at that hour anyway. 40 of them, and 30 of you, I tell them, in a ramp, one at a time, uphill. It is not a fight, it is a corridor, and a corridor is a counting problem, and the counting has already been done, and it does not come out on our side. Somebody asks whether I am telling them to sit here and eat. Somebody else says that 4 people are lying against that wall, and that arithmetic did not help any of them. Neither of those is a question I have an answer to. I am standing in front of 30 people holding nothing but a sum, 4 minutes after a man I brought up here on a lift ticket died against a wall, and I know exactly what I look like. They go anyway. They go up and the 40 step aside for them, one at a time, politely, all the way up. By the time the front of it reaches the top, the back of it is still at the bottom, and there is nothing to push against and nowhere to put your weight, and 30 people arrive on the third terrace over the course of 3 minutes in 1s and 2s and get taken apart in 1s and 2s. It costs 2. It does not cost her one thing. Nobody thanks me for having been right, and I would not have known what to do with it if they had. 9,000 of us came in on the first day. That is the number I said out loud on the concrete on the first morning, and I have not said it since. 2,311 are standing tonight. A man at the waterline has been keeping it badly, the way people keep things, and I make him say it twice because I do not believe him the first time. 6 of tonight are mine, and I could put every one of the 6 in a sentence that starts with something I said out loud in front of people who trusted me for saying it. We have it out in the water room with about 11 people in it, and I do it there and not in my own head, because there is one person in this place who loses by what I am about to say, and she is entitled to say so to my face. There is one thing that ends this, I tell her, and it is not tonight, and it is not that ramp, the white door. It costs 100,000 marks. It has never cost anything else, and nobody has ever talked it down by a single mark. Mara puts the ladle down, which she does not do, and asks me where exactly I think 100,000 marks is sitting. I tell her, the 9th terrace. She says the thing back to me that every person in that room already knows, and she says it slowly so that I have to stand there for all of it. 28 raids, 40 people each time, not one of them back down. The last one went up 8 days ago, she says, and we have spent every night since listening to what came down instead of them, and 4 of the people who were listening are lying by my wall. I do not have a clever answer for that, because there is not one, and I do not insult her by trying to find one. My level has not moved in 2 weeks. I say that out loud as well, and it is the only piece of the argument that is actually new to anybody in the room, and it is the piece that ends it. There is no unpicked ground left, I tell them. Not the apron, not the second, not the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. I have been over every floor below the ninth that anybody has ever bled on, twice. A thing my hand has been on once is finished forever. It never rolls again for me or for anybody. So I cannot go up because there is nothing left down here to go up with, and level 16 still costs what it cost a fortnight ago, and I have not found 400 points in that fortnight. So this is not a brave idea, and I am not offering it as one. It is the last thing on the board. There is exactly one floor in this world that nobody has ever walked across and picked up, and it is the one with the thing on it that eats Raid's. Raid has been against the wall by the door with his arms folded for every minute of it, and he has not moved once, and everybody in the room has been waiting for him without saying so. I can hold ground, he says. That is what I am. I did it on the apron, and I did it in that doorway, and I can do it for as long as anybody needs it done. Tell me where the ground is and how long you want it held. It is the only useful sentence anybody says all night, and there is no courage anywhere in it. It is a man giving a measurement. Herrick says that we would need a lot of rope. He says it into a silence at precisely the wrong moment, and he means it entirely seriously. About 9 people laugh at once. It is the only laugh in that room all night, and every single one of us needs it, including him, although he does not know what caused it and asks twice. 22 people put their hands up before I have finished asking, and 11 of them are people I have handed something to in front of a queue at some point in the last month. Mara does not put her hand up. She stands at the water wall with her arms folded and lets everybody see her not do it. And then she goes and gets the bandage out of the crates I carried up that ramp and starts counting the rolls. We go in the morning, and I say the rest of it before one person has agreed to come, standing on the plate at the bottom of my own rope, with the crates still lying where I put them down. 28 raids have gone up there, I tell them. That is more than 1,000 people. Not one has ever come back down that ramp. Not injured, not crawling, not at any point in 6 weeks, and I am not going to stand here and tell any of you that we have thought of something the other 1,000 did not. 22 of us go up at first light, and my brother goes first, and it is not a decision anybody makes out loud. It is simply what happens when the ramp starts. The climb from the 5th to the 9th is 4 hours, and it is not empty. Things have been coming down that way for 11 days, and they are still coming down, and they do not stop because a raid is going up. Raid takes the front all the way up. He does not clear the route. Clearing a route is what raids do, and it is why raids take 3 days and arrive tired. He stands in the narrow bits and lets the rest of us go past behind him, and then comes on last. Twice that morning he holds a stair on his own for long enough that the line gets above it, and both times he comes up afterwards without saying anything, and both times somebody near me says his name. On the 7th terrace we lose an hour because the route we planned is not there anymore. Go round, says Herrick. Nobody answers him, and everybody keeps looking at the fall, and then a man at the front says we should go round, and we go round. It is the only thing Herrick says all day. It is correct, and nobody notices that it was his. Somewhere on the 8th, a man asks Raid how he stands at the front of a stair for 4 minutes without going backwards. Back foot, says Raid. You said it before anything gets there. Said it after, and you are already going backwards. You have only not noticed yet. Then he says nothing else for 2 hours. The little glass eyes are all over that climb. They come out of the walls at the corners and they turn to follow, and what they follow is my hands, because they have been following my hands since the first week, and they have never once done anything else. We come out onto the 9th terrace at about the 4th hour, and every single one of us stops walking at the same time, and 22 people do not usually manage that. It is a floor of equipment. That is all I can say about the first sight of it. 28 raids went up here, and none of them came back, and everything they were carrying is still lying exactly where it stopped. Rope and coils, lamps, kit bags with the straps still done up, spears in a heap where somebody dropped a whole bundle of them, and further out past the edge of the light, the shapes of it going on, and not one thing in it has ever been picked up. A raid does not stop to bend down, and there has never been a raid up here that had anybody left to bend down afterwards. 6 weeks of the best equipment anybody ever carried into this place, lying on a floor, untouched, and the one thing my hand can never do is touch a thing twice, and the one thing it has always been able to do is touch a thing once. I do not say any of that out loud on the terrace. I do not have to. Every person standing there with me has watched me pick things up off floors for a month, and I can hear the noise they make when they understand it. Then the weight comes across the floor at us, and there is no more time for looking at anything, and I get about 9 seconds of the richest place in the world before it stops being scenery. It is not a person. I want that on record before anybody in the lamppost turns it into one. There is nothing in it to outthink and nothing in it that schemes and no bargain anywhere in the shape of it. It takes people, and it has taken 1,000, and it has never once done anything else. Raid holds the ground. There is no more plan than that. 20 of us fight it, and 1 of us does not. And the 20 are not there to kill it. They are there to make it busy in one place, while a man with no strength at all walks about behind them picking things up. So that is what I do, on the worst floor in the world, at the top of everything, doing precisely the thing I have done since the first afternoon on the apron. I walk in behind other people's fighting, and I take what nobody stopped for. There is no trick in it. There has never been a trick in any of it. It is volume, and it is that my hands are the only hands in 6 weeks to arrive on that floor with nothing to do but work. A coil of rope comes up out of the dust, and it is not rope. It is something you could hang a terrace off. I put it into the arms of the man behind me, and he takes it up the line, and somebody starts using it before it stops moving. A spear off the heap, then 4 more, handed back, 1 at a time, and the 4th one goes to the woman we have all been calling the Manhwa one for a month, and she takes it left-handed and does not thank me. Lamps. 11 of them in a bag with the straps still done up, and the terrace goes from a place with 3 lights in it to a place you can see across, and that alone changes what the 20 can do. A man I have never spoken to shouts something at the rest of them about what is coming up the line, and what he shouts is that everything he has been handed in the last 10 minutes has been better than anything he owned when he walked up here. 2 of them start calling for things by name. Rope. 1 of them wants and gets rope. A man on the left wants a shield, and there is no shield anywhere on that floor, so he gets a kit bag full of somebody's spare plate and makes one out of it in about 11 seconds. And it holds. That is the hour. 20 people fighting the worst thing anybody has ever seen, and a man walking about behind them with his arms full, handing things forward, and every single object that comes off that floor works. I am hit twice in the first quarter of an hour. The second one puts me on my back in the dust with my ears ringing and something coming for me, and it does not come for me because my brother is standing in front of it with his shoulder down and his boots skidding. None of this is a shield. It has never once been a shield. The best that can happen keeps getting better, and the worst has not moved a hair since the first morning, and up there the worst is standing 11 feet away. The bread man dies on that floor. He is 40 yards from me, and I hear it, and I do not see it, and he is holding a blade I gave him in front of a queue 11 days ago, and I am told afterwards that he was using it properly. And the Manhwa one dies about an hour later, further out, past the light, with the spear I handed her. I say the bread man out loud when we go past him, because that is what he was called and everybody knew it, and there are 2 people who stop what they are doing to hear it said. And then I stand over her and I cannot say anything at all, and I ask the man beside me what her name was. He looks at me, and then at her, and then back at me. I do not know, he says. I have eaten beside her every day for a month. I ask the next one, the Manhwa one, he says, and then hears himself say it, and stops. The third one thinks about it properly, and then says that he is not going to guess at it, not standing here, not at her. Every one of us has called her the Manhwa one since Herrick started it, and she hated it, and she stopped fighting it about a fortnight ago. She put 4 points into Manhwa on the first morning, and stood on the concrete holding her hands out in front of her, waiting for them to do something, and she was 11 steps from me while I was reading the bottom row of the table, and I have known her for 34 days. There is a thing in the kit of the 28th raid that they carried all the way up here and never got close enough to use. A flask, sealed, heavier than it looks, and I do not know what it is meant to do because I have never seen one used and neither has anybody else alive. In my hand it comes up wrong in every direction, which in my hand means right. Throwing it is worse. I say so to Raid, out loud, standing in the middle of a floor with the noise going on. The range on a throw is worse than the range on a walk, because a throw has about 9 ways of going wrong in it, and a walk has 1. Do not, says my brother, and he says it like a man who already knows it is not going to work. I tell him the number, he tells me not to again, and then he says nothing else, because he has been listening to me do arithmetic since I was 9, and he knows exactly what it means when I say it in that voice. Then he goes and makes the ground for me himself, and the last 20 feet of that floor is the 2 of us, him in front, me behind him with a flask in both hands, and he does not look back once, and I do not ask him to. I walk it in, and I get closer to it than any person has been in 6 weeks and lived. And it is the last 4 feet of a 34-day argument about the bottom row of a table. It works, and I will not describe what that is like from 4 feet away, and I do not remember getting back out of it. And the first thing I know for certain afterwards is Raid sitting me up against a wall and taking my hands off the sides of my head, one at a time. Then it is over, and the terrace is very quiet, and 20 of us are standing on the only floor in the world nobody has ever swept. Behind where the thing lived, there is a slope of marks, and it takes a while for anybody to say anything about it, because at first it does not read as money at all. It reads as a wall. 6 weeks of raids went up there carrying everything they owned, and everything they owned is in that heap, and it goes up the wall further than a man can reach, and it runs out flat across the floor towards us in a fan. Nobody says anything for a while. Somebody sits down. A man who worked in a counting house outside stands in front of it with his hands on his head. That is over 100,000, he says. Then he says it again, louder, back over his shoulder at the people behind him. That is over 100,000 marks. Then he laughs once, in a way that is not really laughing, and sits down where he is. 100,000 is the number stamped into the slab on the apron at eye height, where every person in this place walks past it 4 times a day. It takes the rest of the night to get it down. You cannot lift that on a rope, and you cannot carry it in a sack. So it comes down 9 terraces on people's backs, in bags and coats and bundles. And by the second hour, word has gone all the way to the bottom, and the second terrace is coming up to help. They come up in the dark in a line. Mara is in it, Herrick is in it, and counts the line 4 times on the way up and gets a different number every time and nobody minds. And on the 4th go, 2 people count it with him. Pell is in it. He carries with his good hand and his shoulder, in a strap somebody has rigged across his back, and he does not put it down once in 5 hours, and he does not let anybody take it off him at the halfway. Somebody says, going past the 3rd terrace, that they were all out on the edge of it watching, all 40 of them, for the entire 4 hours, and that not one of them came down, and not one of them went up. 3 people say the number out loud on the way down, at different points on the ramps, in 3 completely different voices. The first says it the way you say a joke you do not believe yet. The second says it flat, adding as she goes, and she is the one who works out on the 5th terrace that it is 1 seat and not 2. The third says it to a man who has just asked her what all of this is actually for, and she says it as though it is the answer to every question anybody has, which for about 9 hours it is. On the little glass eyes on the way down, a man in a room somewhere is having the best night of his professional life. Taskoro names Aaron Voss 4 separate ways in 90 seconds. The lucky idiot is gone by the 2nd minute and never comes back. He tries the man who read the table, and the richest man alive, and 1 other, and then he finds the one he wants and says it twice inside a breath and then a 3rd time slower. He does not say Raid Voss once in 90 minutes of broadcast, not when the front of that stair holds for 4 minutes and not at any point on the descent. He says the brother twice, in a subordinate clause. In a kitchen a long way away, a woman is standing 11 inches from a screen with the sound off, counting the people on the ropes, and she counts them 3 times and gets the same number and sits down. 29, says a man on the second terrace. When we come off the bottom of the ramp at about the 5th hour, and he says it because he has been keeping the count since the first week. 29, and it stops there, and it stays stopped, and there is no 30th to count, because there is nothing left up there to send anybody at. The points come up off that floor at dawn, and there are 32,768 of them. That is more than everything I have picked up in 34 days put together. It is more than the valley and the tunnels and the 4th terrace and every floor I have walked behind somebody else's fight since the first afternoon, all of it, in one heap, off one night. And it buys exactly 1 level, not 2, and not 1 with anything left over. 1, and the ladder does what a ladder that doubles has always been going to do. Level 16. 65,536 times, and it is a number I cannot make mean anything, and neither can anybody else, and it goes in while I am sitting on the plate at the bottom of my own rope with blood in one ear. 17 would cost 65,536. I do the sum sitting there, and I do not say it out loud to anybody. And I do not need to, because I have known where that ladder ends since a Tuesday evening in a flat with my brother's finger on a form. At dawn, all of it is on the apron in front of the white slab, bags and coats and bundles in a heap on the concrete with about 400 people standing round it in a ring, and the price is stamped in the metal 11 feet away at eye height. And I get up off the plate and start walking towards it, and every person left alive in this place watches me do it. There is a slot in the white slab about waist high that nobody has ever put anything into, and the price is stamped above it at eye height, where a man can read it while he is deciding whether to sit down. 100,000 marks. A seat. The same 9 words that have been standing in the middle of this floor since the first morning, and they have not moved by so much as a mark for anybody. It takes 9 of us most of an hour to feed it in, because you cannot pour it, and the slot takes it at the speed the slot takes it, and 400 people stand round us in a ring and watch all of it without much talking. Somebody works out partway through what the number is in rations. 25,000 days of eating, he says, at 4 marks a day. Then he works out what that is in years, and stops halfway, and does not finish it out loud. Nobody asks the price to come down. Nobody suggests it. In 36 days, I have not once heard a single person propose that the number on that medal might be open to discussion, and standing in front of it with my hands full, I understand exactly why. Raid is beside me at the slot and has been since the plate, and about halfway through the hour he asks me why I am doing this now at dawn before I have spoken to one person about it. Because if I wait, I will start working it out, I tell him. Who has the best claim? Who has children outside? Who has the least life left in here? Who I owe and how much? I am extremely good at that kind of sum, and I would have an answer by tonight, and I would be able to live with it. He asks me what is wrong with that. That is what is wrong with it, I say. I would be able to live with it. Then I put the last of it in. It is the only thing I do in this entire business without thinking it through first, and I would do it again tomorrow. The slot closes. Then it opens again, and there is 1 token lying in it, and the ring of people round us goes properly silent for the first time all morning. It is a disc of the same white metal, about the size of a palm, with the same stamp pressed into the face of it. And it is warm, and it is worth 100,000 marks in a place where there is now nobody at all, with 100,000 marks. It cannot be sold. There is no price under it that anybody here could pay, and no price over it that exists anywhere in this world. It can only be handed to somebody. I pick it up out of the slot and nothing happens, and it is the first thing I notice, and I have no words for it standing there. Every object I have put a hand on for 36 days has done something in the moment I touched it, and this one comes up off the metal and is only what it looks like, and my hand knows it before the rest of me does. I take Pell aside first, not in front of the crowd, off to the left of it, behind the crates, where the 2 of us are on our own with 9 feet of concrete and all that noise 30 yards away. I put it in his good hand, and I do not make a speech about it, There is no speech. It is a disc of metal in a boy's hand, and it is every one of the last 36 days, and both of us know what it is. He looks at it for a moment, then he gives it back and says no, and he says it without looking up at me, and he does not explain any of it, and he is not unkind anywhere in the way he does it. I ask him why, and he does not answer that either, and he has not asked me a question about anything since the 4th day. Standing behind a crate with 100,000 marks in my hand, I understand that taking something from me would be the same thing as asking me for it, and that he has 32 days in that, and is not spending them on this. It takes about 9 seconds. It is the largest win of my life, 3 hours old, and this is what it buys me, and I have known since a step outside a healer's curtain precisely which sentence on which stair paid for it. Then I do the stupid thing. I go out and do it again in public in the worst possible place, for the best reason I have. I offer it to my brother in front of 400 people and the little glass eyes in the open on the apron, because somewhere between the crates and the slab I decided that this was the clean answer, and that saying it where everybody can hear makes it true. Raid says no. He says it loudly enough that the back of the crowd gets it, and then he does a thing I have never once seen him do. He explains himself carefully in front of people, in order, without getting any bigger while he is doing it. If you buy me out, he says, then I am the one who got rescued, and you are the one who came and cleaned up after me. That would be twice, and there is no version of that anybody tells afterwards where any of it is mine. Then he says the other thing, flat, looking at the concrete while he says it, and that is not like him either. I held that stair on the 7th for 4 minutes, he says, and the ground on the 9th for an hour, and the man in the lampposts has not said my name once in 90 minutes. He has 4 names for you, and none at all for me, and I am not asking you to fix that either. Somebody in the crowd starts to say something and is told to be quiet by 4 people at once, and then the ring stands there in a silence that goes on much too long for anybody's comfort. Nobody is enjoying this. I want that put down somewhere, because the lamp posts are going to cut it into something else by the evening, and what is on that concrete is 2 brothers being extremely careful with each other in front of an audience neither of them asked for. He turns to go and catches a crate with his hip and it goes over, and he stops and picks it up and squares it off against the others, and says something to it while he is doing it, and 400 people hear him. That is the second crate. He has never once apologized to me, and he has now done it twice to furniture. Under the 3rd lamppost, the cheerful voice has to eat a fortnight of his own opinions inside 90 seconds, and he does it at speed, without one moment of visible discomfort. He always knew, apparently. He knew about the brother from the start. He says the thing about a man not selling everything he owns to say sorry, and it is the exact sentence he used the other way round a fortnight ago, and he says it now as though it has been his position since the beginning. He also says that the mother is watching, in the voice of a man doing somebody a kindness, and about 11 people around me look at their boots at the same moment. Then he finds a name for a seat that nobody has taken and repeats it 4 times inside 2 minutes, and it is already coming back down the lampposts before I have walked away from them. So there it stands. 1 seat paid for, real, stamped and empty, at a door in front of 900 people with nobody's name on it anywhere. And I have nothing at all, and that is the piece nobody off this floor has worked out yet, and it will take them the better part of a day to get there. Every mark I will ever have went into that slot in 1 hour, and the few hundred over goes on bandage and bunk money before dark, because a terrace still eats and still sleeps, and none of that stopped happening while I was busy being the richest man in the world. A man comes to me that afternoon about his sister and what a healer costs. 600 marks. He has waited 3 days to ask me, because for 3 days everybody in this place has known that I could pay it without noticing. I tell him the truth. I have 4 marks. He does not believe me, and I have to say it twice, and the second time he looks at my face and works out that it is true and apologizes to me, and those are the worst 2 minutes of that day. I was never rich. I was a man with a heavy sack for about 9 hours. Now I am a man with a disc in his pocket and a bar in his hand and a terrace that still needs feeding tomorrow morning. She comes to me in the middle of the afternoon, in the open, and it is the first time she has stood in front of me since a stair on the 8th day. Issa Vale does not begin with anything at all. She looks at the disc, which I have been turning over in my fingers for 2 hours without noticing that I am doing it, and asks me whether I have felt it yet. I say that I do not know what she means. That is a lie, and she waits through it, and I stop, because I have never once been able to keep something up with her past the end of a sentence. Nothing happens when I hold it, I tell her, and it is the first true thing I have said out loud since dawn. No, she says, it cannot. There is one outcome in that object, one thing it can ever do, one place it can be done, and one way that goes, and there is nothing in a thing like that for you to lift. She is not gloating, and that is what makes her hard to stand next to. She says it the way you would tell somebody their boot is undone, and then she stays where she is in case I want to work through the rest of it with her, because that is what she has done every single time. I ask her whether she is going to pretend that the bunk row was not hers. No, she says, and that is the entire answer. She does not apologize for it, she does not justify it, and she does not put one soft word anywhere near it. Then she asks me about the flask on the 9th terrace and how I decided between walking it in and throwing it. And the ugly truth of it is that I want to tell her. I am standing on the apron with a boy behind me who will not take anything from my hand, and a brother who has just refused me in front of the world, and the person I most want to talk the last 2 days through with is the one who put 6 pairs of hands in my sleeping row. I do not tell her, and that is all the credit I am claiming for it, and it is thinner credit than it sounds. She goes at her own speed, the way she came, and at about 10 steps she stops and says one more thing over her shoulder. That was a good decision at the slot, she says. I do not think you understand yet why it was. All of the 2nd terrace sleeps behind my door that night. Not 19, not a number anybody bothers with. People come up the rope and go to my row, and there has never been anybody at that door, and there is no door. Mira runs the water for all of them without changing one rule. Firsts before seconds. Nobody in front of anybody who was there first. It takes her until the lamps come down, and she does the last 40 standing on feet that have been wet since before I was born, as far as I can tell. I watch her do it from the end of the bench with 100,000 marks in my pocket, and no idea whatsoever that I have just had the best idea of my life. Herrick counts them anyway. He does it out loud, walking the length of it with his 2 fingers going along the bunk ends, and it takes a very long time because the row is now 3 rows and a landing. He gets to something over 90 and says the number. One person interrupts to correct him and is also wrong. Another asks him to do it again more quietly because people are trying to sleep, and he says that he will, and then does it again at the same volume. Down at the waterline, with the cue still moving and the ladle still going, a woman sits down on the end of the bench beside Maradoon. Issa Vale says nothing threatening. She does not mention Aaron Voss at all. She asks how many days it is now on the waterline, and she asks it as you ask about somebody's work when you actually want the answer. Mara tells her. Then Mara tells her the rest of it, because nobody has asked her that question in 400 and some days, and Issa Vale sits there with her hands in her lap and does not interrupt her once. It takes most of an hour. The queue moves the entire time. Not one person in it thinks anything of it at all. It takes me about a minute to be sure, standing at the top of the 2nd terrace stair on the 38th morning, with a disc of white metal in my pocket and a queue forming below me. Mara Doone. 436 days on the waterline, and her feet have been wet for 435 of them, and she has told me twice that the first one does not count because she was still enjoying herself. She has never once asked me for anything. She fed me on my 3rd day when I had nothing, and she gave me a 2nd plate against her own rules the night before I went up past the 4th terrace, and every single person who has come up my rope in the last fortnight has eaten out of her hands. There is one clean use for this thing, and it is her, and I am so pleased with having worked it out that I go straight down the stair and say it in front of the queue. That is the mistake. I do not know it is the mistake while I am doing it, and in fairness to me, it is also the only way I have ever done anything in my life. I say it plainly. Mira, I say, and the queue goes quiet in about a 1.5 seconds, because a queue always knows before anybody says anything. This is a seat through the white door, I tell her. It is paid for and it is yours and there is nothing owed on it. And I put it down on the edge of the trough where she can pick it up herself, so that nobody can say afterwards that I handed it to her. Mara looks at the disc for a while. Then she puts the ladle down, which she does not do, and she wipes her hands on her front. And she tells me no. She does it properly. She does not stumble over it. She tells the queue as much as she tells me, because she has 40 people standing in front of her, and she has never once in her life said a thing to one person that the rest of them were not allowed to hear. If I go, she says, the water line stops. Not slows. Stops on the day I go, because there is nobody here who knows the rules, and nobody who will hold to them, and inside 4 days it is the strong ones drinking first, and the rest of you standing at the back. Then she says what happens in a week, and she says it in order and in detail, and she is entirely right about all of it, and it does not sound like something she has thought of this morning. I say that we can teach somebody. She says that this place has had 436 days to teach somebody, and that I have been here for 38 of them, and asks me who I have in mind. I start to answer that, and she waits, and I get about 4 words into it before I hear what I am doing. I am picking a person out of a queue in front of the queue. I say that I will do it myself, then. She looks at me for a moment and asks how many people I have sent to the back of a line this month, and I say none, and she says, that is because I have never once had to. And she says the other thing, which she has never said to me before and does not say unkindly. You are very good at giving things away, she says. You have not once had to stand in front of somebody and tell them there is none left. And then Pell says the thing that finishes it. He is sitting at the end of the bench with his bad hand in his lap, where he has been since the queue formed, and he has not said one word to me in 34 days. He does not say this one to me either. He says it to her, and he says it looking at her, and it comes out of him flat and quiet and completely certain. You cannot say yes in front of all these people, he says. That is the problem. He has asked you where everybody can hear it, so there is no answer you can give that is not about them. And he did not do it on purpose, and it does not matter that he did not. Nobody says anything, and the queue does not move, and it is the second time in 5 weeks that Q has stopped for anything at all. He is 14, and he has one hand that works. He is right in front of 40 people for the first time in his life, and every person on that bench can see it, including me. And I am standing there with 100,000 marks lying on the edge of a water trough, working out that I am the one who made it impossible for her to say yes, about 90 seconds after being extremely pleased with myself. It is not aimed at me. That is the thing I keep coming back to. He is not paying me back for the 4th day, and there is nothing in his face that is enjoying it, and he is not even angry. He is looking after her. That is all it is. He has spent 34 days being the person nobody asks anything, and somebody has finally treated him as a person whose answer changes what happens, and this is what he does with it. And he does it well. Herrick says that it is a good point. Then he says that Pell is right, that she cannot say yes in front of everybody. Then he starts to explain why, and Orlu is not here to stop him anymore, so a woman near the trough does it instead, and does it twice. I pick the disc up off the trough edge and put it back in my pocket, and the queue starts moving again, and somebody says thank you to her for the water. Mara goes back to the ladle. That is the cost of it, and the scene is over, and you would have to have been watching her for a month to have seen any of it. She has wanted 1 hour off her feet since before I got here. She has said so out loud, laughing, at least 4 times, and everybody on this terrace knows it, and everybody thinks it is funny. I have just offered her the rest of her life sitting down, and she has refused it in front of 40 people, and now she is standing at a trough with wet sleeves putting water into a bowl, and she does not say one word about it, then or afterwards. Herrick tells me at the bench an hour later that the quiet woman sat down with Pell 2 nights ago on the landing, for a good long while, and asked him things, and listened to all of it. He tells me twice. The second time he adds that she also sat with Mara at the waterline, and that he thought at the time it was nice of her, and then he asks me whether I would like him to keep an eye out for that sort of thing. I tell him yes, It is the first time in 5 weeks anybody has said yes to Herrick about anything, and he goes off along the bench looking like a man who has been given a job, which he has. Nothing in that room was undecided before I opened my mouth. Both of them knew what they were going to say, and both of them knew what the other one was going to say, and it was all settled 2 nights ago on a landing and at the end of a bench by a woman who never once raised her voice at anybody. She is not there. She has not set foot on the second terrace in 38 days. She does not need to. And later that same morning, she stands at the head of the third terrace stair with her hands together and tells the terrace what she is going to do at the 11th hour. It is the first time in this entire business that she has said out loud beforehand in the open what she intends to do. There is a corridor on the 4th terrace that is the last way between the top of the works and the bottom of it, and everything else has been going shut for a fortnight, one at a time, quietly, and none of us were counting them because we do not use them. She names it. She names the hour. She says how many people she is going to put in it and what they will do if somebody comes. They will stand there politely, because that is all any of them have ever done. And everybody on my terrace works out inside about 4 minutes what that actually costs us. It is not food and it is not water, it is the floors. Everything I have ever picked up came off a floor above this one, and 11 people go up those routes every morning. And if the way is shut, then the second terrace is a room with 200 people in it, and a water line and nothing else at all. And then she says the last thing, and she says it in the tone of somebody being helpful, which she almost always is. After that she says, the second terrace is the second terrace, and nothing comes down to it, and nothing goes up from it, and none of you will need to do anything about that today. At the 11th hour she does it. On the hour with about 40 people, exactly as described, and there is not one thing to watch, because it is people standing in a corridor. The terrace watches anyway. About 200 of us on the second terrace edge looking up at a floor we cannot see. At an hour, a woman named this morning, while it happens on the minute. That is what gets into everybody. And it is not the corridor. She said what was going to happen, and then it happened, and there was no gap anywhere in the middle of it for anybody to hope in. Somebody at the waterline says out loud that afternoon that at least there is nothing left she can surprise us with, and about 9 people agree with him, and there is a sort of relief going round that terrace that I do not like at all, and cannot put a name to. Herrick says that she told us, and then did it, and that it is polite, in its way. 2 people tell him to be quiet. He says it again to a different man an hour later and gets further with it, because that man has just come up the rope and has not heard it yet. I work the 5th terrace floors that afternoon and find nothing worth carrying, which has been true for 2 weeks and will go on being true. 4 marks, 1 disc, a bar, 19 rolls of bandage, and a terrace that eats twice a day. A man on the rope asks me that evening what the disc is actually worth now that nobody will take it, and I tell him 100,000 marks, and he laughs, and I do not, and he stops. And the thing I keep turning over that night is that she did not stop me giving it away. She arranged for the answer to be no, and she left the offer standing, and those are not the same move, and I cannot work out why she wanted the second one. Then somebody notices in the morning that my brother is not at the bottom of the hauling line and has not been all night, and that nobody counted the cradle up at first light. On the 4th terrace, in a corridor with 1 lamp still burning at the far end of it, a very large man is standing in the middle of the floor, breathing hard with a ruined sword in his right hand. There is nobody else in it. There were 40 people in this corridor at the 11th hour yesterday, and there is not one of them here now, and none of them is lying on the floor either. That is the trick, and it took him about 2 hours. You cannot fight past 40 people because 40 people is a counting problem. You can empty a corridor, one at a time, from the end, all night, if you are big enough and you do not need to hurt anybody to do it. He walks the length of it twice to be sure of it, slowly, both ways, and at the far end he puts his hand flat on the wall and leaves it there. On the way back he catches a bench with his hip and it goes over and one of the legs comes off it, and he stops and picks it up and stands it against the wall on 3 legs and says something to it. He puts the leg on top of the bench where somebody will find it. Then he moves it so that it is square with the edge and looks at it and moves it again. Then he stands in the middle of the emptied corridor for a long time with the sword hanging down from his hand, in a place where nobody is watching him and nobody knows he is, and he does not go back down for another hour. I do not know one word of any of this until noon, and I do not hear it from him. It is the first thing that has happened in 5 weeks that had nothing whatsoever to do with a number that doubles. She announced a corridor at 11, and a man took it apart at 3 in the morning without telling anybody he was going, and the second terrace wakes up on the 39th day, joined back onto the rest of the world. And when I get down to the plate to ask him about it, he is already counting people onto the cradle, and he does not look up. She comes onto the second terrace herself on the 41st morning and walks up the middle of it, and nobody puts a hand out, and nobody was ever going to. She has never touched a person in her life. Everybody here knows that. And I said out loud a fortnight ago at the waterline in front of about 60 people that nobody in my row lays a finger on her, and I meant every word of it, and I have not changed my mind about it since. So 200 people watch a woman in gray walk to the middle of their terrace and stop and put her hands together, and the queue keeps moving behind her because Mara does not stop a queue for anybody. Then she tells them what I am going to do tonight, and she is precise about it. She names the hour, the 9th. She names the floor, the 5th terrace, and the doorway on the east side of it. She names Aaron Voss twice, and she is the only person up here who still uses both halves of it. And she names the man, and the man is Murr, and there are people on that bench who have not heard his name in 5 weeks and have to be told who he is. She says he has been standing in that doorway for 8 days because that is where she needed a body, and that she is not going to pretend otherwise to anybody here. She says that I will go alone, because my brother is on the 4th terrace holding a corridor open and will not leave it, and she is right about that too, and has known it since yesterday. She says that I will go up and get him, because I am not able not to. She says how long it will take. Most of the night, because the man is twice my size and I have no strength at all, and there is no version of that which is quick. And then she says the last of it, in the same voice without any weight on it anywhere. He will be dead before morning in any case, she says. That is not a thing anybody can change now, and it has not been changeable for 2 days. She does not threaten one person on that terrace, and she does not raise her voice once. She stands there afterwards in case anybody has a question, as you do at the end of a thing you have come to say. A man near the trough asks her why she is telling us. She says that she is telling us because it is true, and because there is no reason for 200 people to spend a night wondering about a thing that is already settled. He asks whether she wants us to stop him. She says no, she says it plainly, and says that stopping him is not possible, and that she would not ask anybody to try, and then she goes back down the stair, and nobody follows her. Herrick says, into the quiet afterwards, that she was very clear. 2 people tell him to shut up. He says it again to a woman further along the bench, who does not tell him to shut up, and he seems pleased about that. I go up at the 9th hour, and I go the long way, up the ramps, because the rope only reaches the 2nd, and nothing anybody has built goes higher than that. I say the one thing on the way, on the 2nd terrace stair, to about 40 people who are standing there watching me put my boots on, because I would rather they had it from me than from her. A thing that is already decided pays me nothing, I tell them. Nothing at all, not one mark, not one point, not one anything. She has just stood in the middle of your terrace and taken every range out of tonight, so there is nothing in it for me anywhere. And I am going anyway, I say. That is my answer, and it is not a good one, and I have not got a better one. The 5th terrace at night is not what it was 5 weeks ago. Half the lamps are out, the row nearest the stair is empty, and there are doors standing open on rooms with nobody in them. I go the length of it and see 4 people. The east doorway is a gap in a wall with a drop behind it, and it is the sort of place a man stands in because somebody told him to stand in it. He is sitting down when I get there, with his back against the frame and his legs out, and he is very much thinner than the man who took my ration off me on the first afternoon in front of 40 people. I am going to die tonight, he says. He says it first. out loud, before anything else, the way he has said everything he has ever done before doing it, and in 5 weeks, it is the first time I have not wanted to laugh at that. Then he says that he is going to try and get up, and he does try, and he does not get up, and he does not make anything of the failing either. I ask him why he stayed in the doorway. Because she said to, he says. I ask what she gave him for it. Nothing, he says. She never gave me anything, and she never said she would. And he says it without one grain of bitterness in it, and I believe him, because I have never once known her to pay anybody anything. She told me what would happen, he says, all of it. She told me the day, and she was not far out. Nobody has ever told me anything before it happened in my whole life. And that is the man, in one sentence, at the end of it. Somebody who announced everything he was ever going to do, standing in a doorway for 8 days, for a woman who told him the truth about the odds and never offered him one mark. I get him down in 4 hours, and not 1 second of it is anything anybody would want to hear about afterwards. I weigh 11 stone. He is a man with 10 in strength who has not eaten properly in 8 days, and he still outweighs me by half again. I have to sit him up first and get under him and take his weight on my back with his wrists in my hands. We do about 40 feet at a time. Then I put him down and sit next to him, and neither of us says anything and my legs shake, and then we do it again. At the 4th terrace, I drop him. Not far, and not on his head, but I drop him, and he does not make any noise about it, and it takes me 11 minutes to get him back up, and I have to do it in 3 goes. Every person left alive in this world can see all of it from below. The 5th terrace face is open to the apron, and there are lamps all the way down, and I am on a stair with a dying man on my back, going 40 feet at a time for 4 hours in front of 2,000 people. It is not one thing like heroic. It is a small man carrying a big one very slowly and very badly, stopping constantly with his mouth open. His coat is heavy on the right side, and I do not look at it until the 3rd terrace, and when I do look, there is a bent ration tin in the pocket, with the lid crushed in on one side. I take it out, I put it in my own coat, and I do not say a word about it to him, and I do not say a word about it to anybody else that night or for 2 days afterwards. He dies about an hour before it gets light, on the 2nd terrace landing, 4 rows from a bunk. Exactly on the schedule, a woman said out loud in the middle of a terrace at 9:10 the previous morning. There is no revenge anywhere in any of it, and I want that put down before anybody goes looking for it, because there is nothing there to find. He took my food on the 1st day. He sold where I sleep on the 8th. I refused him a job in public on the 3rd because a laugh was going, and I wanted it. The accounts between the two of us do not come out in anybody's favor, and they never will. I put him down and sit on the landing with my back against the wall, and that is when I find out what she has actually done to me, and it takes about 4 minutes. 2,000 people watched 4 hours of that, and not one person says one word about it. There is no noise from the apron. Nobody at the waterline looks up. The queue does not stop, and Mara hands me a cup on her way past, just as she would on any other morning. They are not being cruel. Not one of them is being cruel. They were told at 9:10 yesterday morning exactly what was going to happen, in order, with the hour in it, and then it happened, and there was no point anywhere in those 4 hours where anybody watching was uncertain about anything at all. A crowd that already knows the ending does not hold its breath. That is all it is. Everything I have in this place is made of people watching me do something they did not expect, and she has not taken one mark off me, or one person off me, or one floor off me. She has taken the not knowing. Somebody on the bench does the big man's voice that morning out of habit, announcing that he is about to have his breakfast. It gets no laugh at all from anybody, and he stops halfway through and does not finish it. Level 17 would cost 65,536 points, and I have known that number since a Tuesday evening in a flat with my brother's finger on a form. That is one more point than every single point I have spent in my entire life, all of them, since the first morning, and it will always be one more, because that is what a ladder that doubles does at the top of itself. I say it out loud at the bench, because that is the sort of thing I say out loud, and I say it well, and it is a genuinely good line, and nobody at that table looks up from their bowl. In a room a long way from any of this, a man with a microphone is having the worst 4 seconds of his professional life. Tascaro has watched 4 hours of one man carrying another down 5 terraces, and he has nothing at all. He tries the thing about the lucky idiot, and it does not fit, and he abandons it in the middle of the word. He tries a line about a debt being paid and gets it exactly the wrong way round, and then tries it again with the names swapped over, and that is worse. Then he stops. He sits there in front of several million people and does not say anything for 4 seconds, which anybody who works in that trade will tell you is a very long time, and it is the longest silence that broadcast has ever had in it. When he starts talking again, he talks about the weather in the works, which does not have any weather and has not had any since the first morning. Somebody takes the token off me the following night on the apron, in the dark, out of my coat, and I am so tired that I do not notice until the morning. There is no chase, there is no fight, there is not one moment of drama in the entire business, and here is why. That disc is worth 100,000 marks, and there is one place in the world where it does anything. A slot in a white slab in the middle of the most open floor there is, in front of everybody, and every single person on that floor knows whose it is. So the apron spends most of that afternoon watching a man stand about 20 steps from the door with his hand in his pocket. He does not go closer. He walks up and down a bit. He stands there long enough that people stop paying attention to him and start again twice. And at one point he sits down on a crate for a while with his elbows on his knees. Then he takes it out and puts it on the concrete and walks away, and does not look back at it, and does not stop walking until he is off the north end of the apron. I pick it up off the concrete myself, 20 steps from the slot, with about 300 people watching me do it. And nobody says anything about that either, because at 9:10 yesterday morning, a woman told the second terrace that somebody would take it and that it would be back with me by dark, and she said it in the same voice she says everything in, and she was right about the hour. I try to give it away 3 times that evening to 3 people who have all had since breakfast to work out what they are going to say to me. The first man says no before I get to the end of the sentence. Then he apologizes for it. I have been waiting for you since breakfast, he says. I decided about 4 hours ago, and I have been sitting here with it since, and I would rather you had come at me cold. The second says that she told him I would come to him. Do not make me be the one who says no to you in front of my wife, he says, and then he says no to me in front of his wife. The third does not say anything at all. He shakes his head twice and carries on splicing a rope in his lap and does not look up again, and I stand there for a while like a man waiting for a bus. Being expected is worse than being refused. I would not have believed that a week ago, and I have 4 hours of stare and 3 refusals to put behind it now. So I sit on the plate at the bottom of my own rope in the dark with 100,000 marks in my hand and 4 marks in my pocket and nothing at all that anybody wants. At the hour when the counting normally happens, after the lamps come down to night burn, the second terrace is quiet. I notice it, and I do not do anything about it, because I am somewhere else in my head, and because a quiet terrace after a night like that one is the least remarkable thing in the world. Herrick has not come back, and nobody works that out for 6 hours, and that is exactly the arithmetic. There is a cistern under the second terrace with 1 hatch in the top of it, and it fills off the overflow on a schedule that has not changed since before any of us arrived. Nobody uses it. Nobody goes in it. It is a concrete box with a ladder and a sump bulkhead at the bottom of the far wall that has been shut for longer than the works has had people in it. Herrick is in there. He has been in there since some time yesterday evening, with a lamp somebody left him, and it is not kindness, it is so that he can see the water. Every object in that chamber has been handled. 2 of her people went down the ladder the day before yesterday with their hands out and touched the rungs and the rail and the sill and the lamp and the floor and the walls as far up as they could reach. The inflow is on a schedule. A schedule is not a range. There is nothing to be lucky about in a number that has been the same number for years. And there are 40 people standing in the stair that leads down to the hatch corridor, in 1s and 2s, spread out, doing what they always do. That is not what makes it clever. What makes it clever is the one thing nobody would have thought of and everybody understands the moment they hear it. Nobody comes for the man nobody listens to. He has been telling this terrace things for 5 weeks, and being wrong about most of them, and being talked over on all of them, and the floor has trained itself out of hearing his voice, and she has watched that happening every night for a fortnight. It is very good reasoning. That is the thing I want said about it. Every person who hears it afterwards knows immediately that it is correct. Nobody tells me, and that is the other thing about it. The terrace is quiet at the hour when the counting normally happens, and I notice it at the time and do nothing, because a quiet terrace after a night like the last one is the least remarkable thing in this world. It is 6 hours before I understand what quiet means at that hour, and I am halfway through a bowl when it lands, and I put the bowl down. Then I work out where, not by looking. By the method, because she has one method and she has used it 4 times on me now. There is exactly one place on this terrace where every object has already been handled by somebody else, and that is any place her people have been. And there is one room down here that nobody uses, and that is the only kind of room you can prepare for 2 days without anybody noticing you doing it. I have been in a room like that once before, on a day when a boy took the high end of a crib because he wanted to be looked at as dangerous, and I have not forgotten 1 second of what it felt like when my hand came down on that wedge. I say it out loud in the water room with Maradoon and my brother both standing there, because I am not going to do this one in my own head either. Mara does not argue with me first. She puts a plate down in front of me and makes me eat all of it, standing over me, and she does not say one word the entire time. Then she tells me not to go, and she is entitled to, and she does it well, and she does not use one of the arguments I have ready. There are 200 people on this terrace who eat because you are on it, she says. You have already given away the only thing you had. And I am not going to stand here and pretend that a man who cannot lift a crate is going to fetch anybody out of anywhere. I go anyway, in front of her, 4 minutes after she has fed me, and it is the thing I have been doing to people since the first week, and I have nothing better than that to give her. Raid goes to the stair. He does not come with me, and I do not ask him to, because there are 40 people between the second terrace and that hatch, and there is only one person in the works who can do anything at all about 40 people. I get past them the way I got past them before, slowly and politely, and it costs me 9 minutes, and every one of them steps aside. Her weapon has never once been a wall. It is 40 ordinary people who have never been touched by anybody in their lives, standing somewhere in front of men who will not put hands on them, and that has been enough every single time, because it is enough against everybody in this place. It is not enough against my brother, and it never was, and the reason is not that he is willing to kill any of them. He does not. That is not softness. It is the entire mechanism. 40 people in a corridor stay a counting problem no matter who walks into them. What they are no proof at all against is a man who takes them out of it, 2 at a time, from the back of the stair, all night, without needing to hurt one of them to do it. The trouble is that this is not the corridor on the 4th terrace, and the difference is not the number of them, it is the clock. On the 4th, he had all night, an empty floor and nobody waiting on anything. Here the stair is packed 6 deep because she has put them where the space is worst, and there is water going into a sealed box on a schedule. He does the sum himself at the bottom of it, out loud, with his hands on his knees, and I am told afterwards by 2 separate people that he did it twice to check. 40 people, 4 at a time, carried down a packed stair 1 pair at a time, is somewhere over an hour, and he says the number out loud twice. The chamber fills in less than that. At the far end of the corridor, past the hatch mouth, 2 of her people are standing where they were put, watching a very large man work. He has been at it for 11 minutes. He comes up the stair, takes hold of 2 of them, carries them down and sets them on their feet at the bottom and goes back up. He is not hurrying and he is not shouting and he has not hit anybody. He tells each pair where to stand when he puts them down. He says it politely. 2 of them go back up past him and he carries them down again, and the second time he says it again in the same voice. The shorter one at the far end says something about the count, and the taller one does not answer him. Then the shorter one says that she told them they would hold the stair, and that she has never once been wrong about anything. The taller one says that she also told them nobody would come, and the 2 of them stand in the corridor, mouth in the dark, not looking at each other. The water in the cistern is at Herrick's chest when I come down the ladder, and he is standing in the middle of it with the lamp held up over his head in both hands. He apologizes to me, That is the first thing out of him, standing in cold water in a concrete box, and what he apologizes for is being trouble. Then he explains the apology. He explains that he knows I have a great deal on, and that he did not mean to be a bother to anybody, and that he would have got out on his own, but the hatch is heavy from underneath. Then he says the first bit again, in case I missed it, and while he is saying it, the water comes up over the sill on the far wall. And I find my anger. I have been looking for it for 24 years. I looked for it standing on the concrete on the first morning with my brother's name on my form. I looked for it on the apron on the 22nd day with him in front of me, trying to make me hit him. It has never once been there, and I have never known why. It is there now, in a concrete box, over a slow, enormous man apologizing to me for being trouble, and it comes up through me like water going into a boot. And she is at the hatch. I did not hear her arrive, and I do not know how long she has been sitting up there, and the first I know of it is her voice coming down the ladder, well, the way a voice does in a place like that. 14 minutes, she says. She tells me the inflow in minutes correctly because she has never once lied to anybody about odds and is not going to start with me. 14 minutes to the sill, 19 to the roof. The hatch takes 2 men from underneath, and there is 1 man down here who counts as about 1/3 of one. Then she says the other thing, and her voice changes, and it is the only time in 6 weeks I have heard it do that. There you are, she says. That is all of it. 2 words, down a ladder well, and she has been waiting for them since a stair on the 8th day, because a man with nothing in him where his anger should be is the one thing in this place she has never been able to read. She starts telling me what I will do next, and she gets the first half of it exactly right, and I hear her getting it right, so I stop. I stand in cold water up to my waist, and I do the arithmetic out loud instead, flat, in the voice I use for prices. 14 minutes, 19. The chamber is about 11 feet by 20. The sill is at 4 foot 2. The inflow has not changed since before any of us arrived. I keep going. I do it slowly, and I do it dully, and I do not put one single thing into my voice, and I do it for a good while, and somewhere in the middle of it, she stops finishing my sentences. I do not spend it. That is all I do in that room, and it is the only thing in this entire business I am actually proud of, and it does not look like anything at all from where anybody else is standing. Then I go and find the one thing in that whole chamber that nobody has decided anything about, and it takes me 2 of the 14 minutes to remember that it is there. It is at the bottom of the far wall, under the water, a sump bulkhead, shut since before there were people here, and nobody in the works has ever opened one of those from the wet side, because nobody in the works has ever been on the wet side of one, which means nobody alive knows what it does. It might take the chamber down the sump in 90 seconds. It might drop the ramp above us into the box on top of the 2 of us, because there is a great deal of concrete up there, and it is old, and it is holding water back. Nobody knows? Not her either, and I ask her through the hatch, and she says so, and she says it perfectly straight because she has never once lied about odds to anybody. That is a range. It is the first one I have been anywhere near in 3 days, and there is exactly one bad end in it, and the bad end is that we drown down here under a slab, and I say all of that out loud to Herrick because he is the person who loses by it. Do not, he says. He says it once. Plainly, without explaining it afterwards, and in 5 weeks he has never once done that, and he is completely right to say it, and I do not listen to him. I go under and I get both hands on the wheel and I put everything I have got into it, and it is not much, and it is the last object my hands are ever going to be the first on. The floor never moves. I have said that to about 9 people over 5 weeks, and none of them ever believed me, and I have never once been more certain of anything. The chamber goes down the sump in about 90 seconds. The water takes us both against the far wall, and then it takes us both off it and out through the mouth and up the corridor on a foot of moving water, and Herrick has me by the back of the coat the entire way, and I do not think he knows he is doing it. And the ramp comes down behind us, not on us. 20 feet behind, into the space we were standing in, with a noise like the floor sitting down, and it goes on coming for a long time after it should have stopped. Nobody else is hurt. Nobody at all. Her 40 are at the bottom of a stair on the other side of the terrace where my brother put them, and the corridor was empty because he had emptied it. The second terrace does not have a ramp anymore. Not that one, and not the other one, because the other one is what came down. So the whole terrace comes down my rope, 4 at a time, all night, and by morning it is all of us on the apron, everybody, for the first time since the day we landed. She goes back up to her own room sometime before dawn, and nobody follows her, and I want this said precisely, because it is going to get told 3 different ways, and not one of them will be this one. Nobody locks her in. The hatch on her room is not locked, and it never was, and it is not the sort of hatch that locks. Nobody puts a hand on her, nobody goes up after her, and there is not one moment where anybody in this place decides to leave her there. She sits in it. Her 40 are off the stair and standing on the apron with everybody else. Nothing is coming and nothing is going to happen, and there is nothing left anywhere in that room that could go one way or the other. An hour in which nothing can go either way. She has wanted that since the 6th minute of the first day, and she asked me about it on the concrete that afternoon before I understood what she was asking, and now she has one, and then another one after it. She keeps it. That is the end of her, and it is the only end that was ever going to work. And she is alive up there right now with everything already decided, and it is the thing she asked for. And down on the apron, there are 2,000 people standing round a white slab in the morning light, with one seat between them, and every single claim on it still on its feet. The second terrace goes nowhere now, so on the 43rd morning, everybody in this world has come down my rope and is standing on the apron at the same time, which has not happened since the day we landed. 2,000 and some of us on a concrete field in front of a white slab with a price stamped in the metal at eye height, with the second terrace lit up above us and nobody on it. Nobody asked me to decide. I want that clear, because the other version is the one that is going to get told. Not one person on that apron comes to me and asks me to name anybody, and I do not offer, and it does not occur to me to offer until it is over. What happens instead is an argument, and it is not tidy, and it goes on for about an hour, and it collapses twice and starts again. Herrick begins it. He gets as far as saying that there are 5 of us with a proper claim, and then somebody at the front asks who the 5 are, and he starts counting them, and by the second name 3 other people are talking. Captain Sob says his piece into the middle of that. He does it standing up straight with the key still on the cord round his neck, and he greets 4 people by name before he has finished the first sentence, because he cannot help it. One of them is me. Arin, he says, the way he said it at the top of his own lift on the 3rd day, and he has never once had to be told it twice. 40 people under me for 6 weeks, he says. Nobody hurt on that lift, nobody thrown off it, nobody shortchanged, and I ran it on time every day, including the days nobody wanted it. Mara answers him halfway through the next sentence, which nobody there expects, least of all him. You did, she says, all of it. And you would have been the last man out of this place with the key in your hand, and every person here knows it, and that is exactly why you are the wrong one to send. He asks her what she means by that, and she tells him. If you walk through that door, she says, then in a month there is not one person left in here who says your name, because you will not be here to say anybody else's, and that is the only reason any of us has ever heard it. Sob stands there for a while, then he says the names. He says them one after another, off the ration line and the lift and the rope, 30 or 40 of them, people who came in on the first day and are not standing here, and he gets every one of them right, and he does not have to think about any of it. And in the middle of that list, he says Besky. I do not know who that is for about 2 seconds. Then I do. She put 4 points into mana on the first morning and stood on the concrete holding her hands out in front of her, and she rode up on his lift on the 3rd day with me, and he said her name back to her at the top, and she laughed. We called her the Mana One for 5 weeks. She died on the 9th terrace with a spear I handed her, and I asked 3 people on that floor what her name was, and none of us knew it, and one man on the apron has been carrying it the entire time. He takes himself out of it after that. He does not make a speech about doing it. He says that he withdraws, in the same voice he used to say 50 ahead, and then he goes and stands at the back and does not say another word all morning. Mara goes next, and it costs her more than anything else on that apron does. 441 days, she says. My feet have been wet for 440 of them. I am 38 years old and I have wanted to sit down for a year and a half, and I am tired of pretending. That is funny. Nobody laughs. About 200 people who have laughed at that exact joke for a year and a half do not laugh at it, and she stands there with the ladle in her hand and lets that happen to her in front of all of them. She says it out loud, and she does not take it back, and she does not withdraw either, and she stands there with her claim on the table, and that is far harder than what she did at the trough 3 days ago, and everybody there can see it. Somebody asks my brother a question he did not want asked. Why he emptied the corridor on the 4th terrace on his own, without telling anybody he was going. He does not answer that one. He says one thing instead, and he says it to me and not to the crowd, and the apron is quiet enough by then that every person on it hears him anyway. I did the corridor, he says. That one is mine. It is the only thing in 6 weeks that is, and it was worth the flat, and I am not putting my name in this. Then Herrick gets to finish his sentence, and that is the piece of this I would like remembered because it takes about 40 seconds, and there are 2,000 people standing in the cold not saying anything for every one of them. He starts the count again from the beginning. He says it slowly. He gets all 5 names in the right order, and he does not lose any of them, and nobody talks over the top of him, and nobody corrects him, and he does not seem to know what to do about that. And then, at the end of it, he says that it is 4 and not 5. He takes himself out of it. His reason is that he does not think he would know what to do outside, and it is not the true reason, and it is not a good reason, and it is completely wrong about him. But the number is right. He has been slightly wrong about a count every night for 5 weeks, and he has been right twice. And both times it mattered more than anything anybody clever said that day. Somebody starts to correct him out of pure habit and gets 4 people turning round at once. And Herrick says thank you to all of them separately, at length, and that is the laugh. And the apron takes it because we need one. Then it is me, and I say the same thing I said over a ladle on the 3rd day when I had eaten nothing since the terrace and had no idea what I was talking about. I do not leave people standing in a place where the answer is already decided. That is all of it. It is not kindness, and it does not make me good. The woman I said that to is standing 11 feet away with a ladle in her hand, and she remembers it exactly, because she told me at the time that it was not an answer, it was a sentence about myself, and she was right. It was not an answer then. It is one now, and not because I have got better, and not because I meant it more. This place is not decided anymore. There is a rope off the apron that 4 people can ride for nothing, and a water line with rules in it, and a terrace of people who have found out what they will do in the dark, and a floor nobody has to send 40 people up ever again. That was not true on the 3rd day, and it is true now, and I am some of the reason, and if I walk through that door this afternoon, then in a month it is decided again, and every hour any of us spent was rent. That is why not. And it is not noble. And I am not enjoying 1 minute of it. And it is the truest thing I have said out loud in 6 weeks. And the apron says it back, out loud, in front of everybody one last time, the way it did at a ration crate on the first afternoon when a man with a bar came out of a tunnel. He read the table. Somebody says it from the back and I cannot see who, and a woman on the first afternoon said that exact thing about me like an accusation, and this time it is not one, and about 9 people say it after him before it stops. Her 40 are standing in that crowd. They came down the rope like everybody else, and they are in among us, and nobody has done one thing about it, and nobody makes a point of not doing it either. Pell does not claim it. He is at the edge of the crowd with his bad hand in his coat, and he has not said one word all morning, and he refused it once already behind a crate 3 days ago, and he is not going to stand in front of 2,000 people and ask for anything. Mira says his name. That is all it takes, and it is the only shape this was ever going to work in. Not me. I am the one person on this apron who cannot give that boy anything, because he stopped asking me for things on the 4th day, and I am the reason he stopped. Nobody argues. Not one person. 2,000 people on a concrete field, and there is no second name put up against it, and the thing that has been sitting on this place for 4 days goes out of it in about 10 seconds. Pell does not say yes, and he does not say no to anybody. He starts walking, and the crowd opens in front of him without being asked. The price is still 100,000 marks. It is stamped in the metal at eye height, and it has not moved by so much as 1 mark in 43 days, and nobody standing there suggests that it should. In a kitchen on the other side of everything, the screen is on with the sound up for the first time in 6 weeks. There is a woman of about 50 sitting at the table with a cup in front of her that she has not touched. She came to the door on the second day and was told he did not live there. Des Vos sits down opposite her and tells her the truth, that he did live there, that she stood behind her own front door and lied to a stranger about her son because she could not do anything else that day, and that she has thought about it every day since. The other woman does not say anything for a while. Then she asks whether Des would mind if she stayed and watched the rest of it, and Des says no, and neither of them looks away from the screen again. The door opens for one. It opens the way a thing opens that has been shut since before any of us were born, slowly, and with a great deal of light behind it, and every person on that apron takes one step back without meaning to. And on the way past, I put a bent ration tin into Pell's good hand. It has been in another man's coat pocket for 6 weeks. I took it off him on the 3rd terrace stair 2 nights ago while he was dying, and I did not tell anybody I had it. The lid is crushed in on one side, and it has always been his. It's been 90 marks on the first afternoon in front of a queue. It is the first debt anybody named out loud down here, and it is the last thing that gets settled. He looks at it. Then he says the only thing he has said to me since the 4th day, and it is not a question, because he never asked me anything again, and he was not going to start now. You said about a month, he says. Then he says the rest of it, and he says it the way Herrick would, which I do not believe he does on purpose. That was 39 days ago, and he goes through, with a tin in one hand and a knife in his coat that I picked up off a floor on the 2nd day, and the door shuts on a boy. Then I turn round on the apron and face everybody who stayed. The 2nd terrace is lit up behind them, and the price is at my back, stamped in the metal, where it has been since the first morning. Raid is at my shoulder. Mara has already gone back for the ladle because there are 2,000 people down here and no water line. 2,206 of us are standing. 9,000 landed on this concrete on the first morning, and the number has only ever gone in one direction, and that is the only thing in this whole business that ever went down. Somebody says in one clause, on the way past, that the woman on the 3rd terrace has not come out of her room and is alive in it. Nobody goes to look. Nothing here is finished. The lamps are still up there, and nobody made them, and nobody knows what the tunnels are for, and the price on that door has not moved and is not going to, and there are 2,000 people on this floor who are going to have to do all of it again without me being a god about it, and they will. On the first day, the man beside me put 10 points into strength, and his arms changed shape, and he was right and I was wrong, and it was not close. That is exactly how long being right lasted.
All of it turns on one man reading a line of small print that 9,000 people were too frightened to look at. Everything he got by walking in behind other people and picking up what nobody stopped for, and he kept it by putting it into somebody else's hands in front of a queue. Watch what he does at the end. He holds the only way out of that place and does not use it, and cannot hand it to the boy he owes most, because a boy who stopped asking cannot be given anything by the man he stopped asking. Somebody else says the name. Being right is worth very little on its own. What you do with the people who watched you be right is the rest of it.